Hello everyone, welcome to the AMS Oz GT3 World Challenge Round 6, coming to you from the Abu Dhabi circuit, the Yas Marina circuit in Abu Dhabi rather. Apologies to you who have been waiting for this stream to go live. We have had a few issues getting it up and running, but it looks like we've got this up and running officially now. A little bit of an issue on the YouTube end of things, not 100% sure why that was the case, but it definitely has now been resolved, and we're halfway through the qualifying session, and at the moment Matt Williams heads the field in his Mercedes SLS and giving a tow to his teammate there in Brendan Ross, hopefully trying to get him up the order. And at this point in time, I would like to welcome Bagsy back into commentary. He's been away for a couple of weeks and missed the last round at Sepang, but it's good to have you back, mate.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Got all the teething issues sorted out with the stream. YouTube has been spoken to harshly and is now responding for us. And yeah, we've missed half the qualifying session and the wonderful build-up we did, but it's a 2-hour race and we've got plenty of time to talk about the track and other things when we have lulls in proceeding, which I'm sure we'll have a few over the course of 2 hours.
Yep, I'm sure you're absolutely right. We're going to have plenty to talk about over the next 2 hours, given we have got a small field. And at the moment, as we pick the qualifying session back up, Matt Williams still heading the session from Brenton Foley, who's coming around in his Bentley for another flying lap. And as we look down the list, looking to see Lewis Wedding and Glenn Miles, the only two men yet to set times. Glenn Miles currently out there on the circuit. Lewis Wedding was the man who headed the practice standings. He was in the low 208s before the qualifying session started, and we're now in the low 2-minute 7s, but we had seen some practice laps done during the week that were in the mid 206s. In fact, Lewis Wedding had done a 206.6 in free practice at some point in the last couple of days. So we know what's possible, and we hope that Lewis will get out there and chuck up a good challenge to the guys who are currently laying down some nice times. Foley's about to trigger the Sector 1 timing split right here, and he's 3/10 off the leading pace at the moment for this particular lap. He's not that far away in terms of the outright pace from his best lap, but he's certainly hanging it out and drifting it about, and in actual fact did so right in front of the current provisional pole sitter through the chicane there. So aborting a lap for Foley, and thankfully Matt Williams is only on an out lap, so it didn't hamper his progress at all, apart from having to take some avoiding action.
Yeah, just an update on the practice times. Got a couple of practice times. They were Wedding and Ross were the two front runners in the practice session just before we came to qualifying. Wedding with a 208.193 and Ross with a 208.218. So only 25 hundredths of a second between those two, and yeah, pretty close there. And they've already beaten those times pretty handily by a good half a second for Ross. And Wedding hasn't yet because he hasn't set a time, but expect them to be up the front of this once they get up and about.
Well, if Lewis is going to set a time, he'll probably have to be out on the track in the next sort of 60 seconds to make sure he gets around and does a lap. As Matt Williams coming around to see if he can better his current provisional pole time. And sat up in the pits at the moment, Ozrob and Lewis Wedding.
So yeah, Wedding, as you said, hasn't left at all. Glenn Miles is out on the track. He's the only other person who hasn't set a time yet. But yeah, Lewis Wedding not leaving the pits. There he goes now. So
all right,
he's got 3 minutes. So he's only getting
one flyer.
He'll get 2 laps potentially.
Oh, he might get no, at this rate in time.
Actually, no, he won't.
Only get one.
Yeah, only one.
He'll only get one. Yeah. So sometimes it only takes one though, Bagsy, and we've seen this before.
All or bust for Wedding.
Yes, the all or bust for Wedding, and not only that, we've seen FCR cars before opt to go out last in or for single lap flies in qualifying and get the chocolates at the end of the day. It's Matt
I wonder
Williams.
why he's going for that, because it's very risky. There's nothing to be lost by doing multiple qualifying runs,
No,
really, because we don't limit the amount of tires you can have for a session or anything like that, or the amount of fuel. It's you can just keep going out, doing a couple laps or doing one lap, going back to the pits, coming back out. So I maybe he just wants one run and glory.
potentially. Well, the drivers that are all coming to the checkered flag or the line now, Devonish might be lucky to get another lap in if he can get around quickly enough. In actual fact, he's improved his time. He's moved up to P4, which pushes
Yeah.
Steve Bolger in the other Lamborghini down to P5. So that's just a position exchange there. So he's the first one at the moment that's on a flying lap.
He could get two more laps potentially if this lap is perfect. He'll get across the line just before time expires.
He will, so he'd be lucky to get 2 laps. The first of the men that have going to get one more flying lap chance, Brenton Foley, is on the move now, currently running through the fast-flowing turn 2, 3, 4 complex, now down to the turn 5 and 6 chicane. Lewis Wedding's across the... where's Wedding at the moment? He's actually still coming through Sector 2 at the moment. Boker's gone through to start on his last flying lap. He's currently P7. And Wedding is about to come through the technical section that comes underneath the hotel, and then he will be on the move for his one and only shot at positioning himself for this race.
Foley up through the first sector.
Foley up on the P1 time at the moment by 0.2 of a second, over 0.2 of a second. Now he actually had the quickest car through the sector 1 before he even took to the track this time around, and he's done it again. So he's on a very, very nice lap at the moment. He had the first purple sector. But it's obviously it's been set up to handle well through that first section, but given that the second sector is virtually the first one half of the first straight, the full length of the second straight, and then all this run up through here, these sweeping right-handers to bring you up to the turn that brings you around the backside of the marina, and the second sector split will come up in just a few seconds now, and he's lost virtually all that time. So obviously set up a little bit more for the corners than anything else. Now
Matt Williams had a very strong middle sector. Devonish is not able to improve, but he did cross the line time to get one more lap.
So Devonish will get one more, and Foley's gone wide at the last corner as well, so didn't hamper his run too badly, but he'll just try and straight line this as much as he can. Doesn't improve his time. So he is done and dusted. Let's even pick up his teammate, Phil Boak. He's a couple of corners from home, and a much tidier line, and a better line through the final corner. He's sitting on a 2:11. This will certainly improve his time, and he jumps nowhere. He improves his time, stays P7. Now, Wedding. He's in Sector 2 at the moment, and just about to trigger the Sector 2 split.
He was very close to Matt Williams in the first sector, but the middle sector is where Matt Williams gained.
Oh, well, he did not trigger the second sector split. We did not get a second sector split trigger on our clock. I'm wondering if he's had a track violation somewhere here, Lewis Wedding, but we'll soon find out, because that should have come up on our timing screen, and yeah, he's in.
Yep.
So he's had a track violation. Wow, big news for Lewis Wedding. Now, the only other man who can improve is Will Devonish, and in actual fact, Steve Bolger. Steve Bolger's on his last flying lap at the moment as well. So the two Lamborghinis
I believe Matt
are
Williams is on another flying lap as well. Brendan Ross is up. He's up by 0.4 of a second coming into the final sector.
Brendan Ross is currently P3. Where is he on this list? So he's about to come to the checkered flag now. So he's just on the road ahead of Steve Bolger. A little bit wide at the last corner. Will it be pole for the Mercedes driver? Yes, it is by 6.5 tenths nearly. Wow, what a margin that is. Steve Bolger,
across,
he's P5. Devonish is also done. Where's Matt Williams?
And Matt Williams pulled into the pits, so he decided to pull out of that lap, and he realised, well, actually, he was not looking too bad. But it was Brendan Ross's first sector that was
He had
Very,
purple.
very
He had
fast.
a purple sector, sector one, and he had a purple sector in sector three, and his sector two time was pretty much a dead ringer for what Matt Williams had done in term. And actually, what the best fastest sector was set by Matt Williams, but he wasn't far away, so he really put it together when it counted. Great lap by Brendan Ross, and huge margin in the end. In actual fact, he's not that far away from the best lap time that was set by Lewis Wedding, as I said during free practice earlier in the weekend, which was a 206.659, and Ross with a 206.680 is mighty mighty quick and mighty mighty close. So we now have a little bit of a lull in proceedings, and that allows us to go back over a few things that we started talking about. We didn't realise that the stream was unfortunately having some sort of issues on the YouTube end. So it'll give us an opportunity now just to quickly go back over what we'd spoken about before we get underway for tonight's race. So first and foremost, as we said just in very haste, welcome. It is round 6 of the 9-race GT3 World Challenge. It's the final leg of the Asia Pacific round of events, which were Sepang last week, the week before, or the weekend, or the 2 weeks prior to that, it was Suzuka, and then tonight in Abu Dhabi, and then we're off to the Americas for the for the Americas leg of the series. The current points standings, as you can see from the graphic here, is still headed by Brendan Ross. So he is not only the pole sitter tonight, but he is also the championship leader. And he only has one win on his books at the moment, which was at the Le Mans 2-hour event. So it might be an omen. He's on pole for the 2-hour event tonight, so he could very well double up and get a little bit extra, few extra points, because for the 2-hour events, it is a 30-point payday for the race winner. Lewis Wedding, wow, big story out of qualifying. He'll be starting at the back of this grid alongside Glenn Miles, who's fair to say has been off the pace in qualifying and the practice sessions. Foley is still third, 2 points ahead of Jamie Snow, who's not here tonight. Greg Nangle 1 point ahead of Ozrob, who's Greg Nangle not here tonight as well. And Steve Bolger having a good qualifying session, and he's still heads a number of people on that list there. Brock Harvey, unfortunately, not well. Greg Tara not here tonight. Glenn Miles, the only one representing Cadillac and Playboy Racing tonight as well. And there's still plenty of points on the table, most importantly, Bagsy. Tonight, still the 30 points for the win, still 30 points for the final race of the season, and another 2 lots of 25 for the other 2 races in between coming up after this one. So still plenty of time for, I would say, probably the top half a dozen guys to still make a move and put themselves in contention for this championship.
Yeah, certainly. And really, we've seen DNFs can be quite prevalent in this series. We saw in Le Mans several people having issues, and several people in the same corner having issues getting onto the long back straight at Le Mans, and that's a lot of points that goes begging. And if for whatever reason Foley, Ross, and Wedding all didn't finish today, and Ozrob or Bolger, well, although I think, it was that Ozrob won the race. Suddenly he's equal on points with Brendan Ross, who's the leader. So, really anyone, and you can't count out Steve Bolger if there's other DNFs. If he just finishes the race, points points are all important, probably more so than race wins, because as we see, Wedding, the only repeat winner, but he's second in the championship, not first.
That's right. So yeah, points are a premium thing. So it doesn't matter if you have a hard luck story, you just got to get in there and finish it. And the only downside to that, when you talk about hard luck stories, is when you actually can't finish because things like your internet fail and that. And there's 2 men in the field that are not on those point standings at the moment, in Matt Williams and Will Devenish. Matt Williams actually has 0 points on the season. Devenish has got points, but he's outside the top 10. So those 2 gentlemen probably have they've had good cars underneath them, but just had some bad luck. And really probably are overdue for a win in this series. But if they did win the race, it'd take some points off of the drivers that are trying to chase down Brendan Ross at the moment. That potentially would want to bank those points as well. So the finishes will be very, very important come the end of tonight's race, because it'll set up this three-leg race coming for the Americas, which will bring up the calendar now and show you where that's all at. So as you can see, after tonight, we've got Circuit of the Americas coming up in 2 weeks, then off to Interlagos, and then the final in Road America. And last time we were at Road America, Lewis Wedding played a very, very good and a very interesting strategy that had us all guessing with regards to what he was doing. And he actually won that last time out. He did GT3 competition in Road America. As you said, he's the only repeat winner, and he won the first race at Barcelona. He won the fourth race at Suzuka, and the other victories on the calendar there going to Greg Nangle in Monza, Brennan Ross at Le Mans in France, and last time out, Jamie Snow in Sepang in Malaysia. So 5 races, 4 different winners. It's a good spread, and it's spiced the championship up nicely. And the circuit for tonight, which you've just been watching and we've just mentioned a few times, is the 5.5 kilometre long, 21 corner, fantastic venue around the marina section of the Yas Marina at Abu Dhabi in the UAE. And we're going to get close to a full Grand Prix distance in terms of lap count for the 2 hours that we are running for tonight. And as we were talking off air, Bagsy, about this, it's a circuit that needs to be set up for everything. So the first sector has some fast and flowing corners and the hairpin. Then you've got the 2 long straights, which comprise, well, half the first straight compromises the sector 1 and the other half sector 2, and then sector 2's got all the second straight. And then the third sector is pretty much a whole bunch of 90 degree and reflex angle corners, where you need to have a car that not only can tackle the height, the high speed aero, be as slippery through the air down the straights, but also corner really, really well. So you can't just focus in on one particular element of the car. You've really got to have something that balances quite well for all 3 types of demands that this circuit throws at you.
Yeah, you certainly do. I haven't had a chance to look at speed trap uh, readings yet, but you've got the feeling that Matt Williams is probably a bit down on the straights, because he had a much better middle sector than anyone else apart from Brendan Ross, who matched him. So you'd think that those two might have gone for some higher downforce setups potentially, or rather lower downforce setups, because they were good in sector 2, which is mainly straights. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting again to see how the different cars will react to the different parts of this circuit. In qualifying, you're right, we had seen that Brennan Ross set purple sectors through the first and third sectors. He wasn't far away from a purple in sector 2, but that sector did go to Matt Williams. And for a little while as well, Brenton Foley, when he was a couple of minutes out from the end of the session, he was already purple in sector 1. So his car had obviously been set up to tackle the changes of direction quite nicely through that high speed section, turns 2, 3 and 4, and down to the hairpin. But the Bentley's not the quickest car in a straight line, and he did have a few missed a few apexes in the final sector as well, which probably hampered his lap time as well. But nonetheless, he's starting off of a respectable position on the grid, still searching for his first win in this championship as well. As we've got just over 2 minutes remaining in the warm-up session.
Looks like Boak's the only one who's taken to the track after the driver's briefing. Wonder if he'll practice his pit in. It's very crucial to practice that, and people often forget to do it. And in these races, it can come back to bite you, because we believe, barring any significant safety car interventions, about 3 pit stops. These cars can usually do about half-hour stints, so 2 hours, pit 3 times. That'll get you through the race. 2 times if there is enough safety car intervention, but could be very borderline, like we saw in Sepang. But yeah, practicing those pit entries, because if you go too fast, you get a drive through. And as often happens, if there's a safety car and everyone comes into pit and you get a penalty, you can't serve that until the safety cars come in. and that is going to cost you a lot of time.
That's right. And interesting just to see here as well, Boak is locking up in the same sort of areas that Foley did it on his qualifying runs, and this is only in the warm-up. Now, Phil Boak has actually borrowed a spare set of pedals from Brenton Foley for the race tonight. His own set having some sort of technical dramas, so it'll be interesting to see if he can get up to speed with whatever pedals these are, if they're the same set or they're a different type of set. We're not 100% sure. There's a couple of people just jumping out and returning to the servers at the moment, and hope that everything will be right. So at the moment, just waiting on Brendan Ross to come back in. He's got 45 seconds to get himself organised before the race gets underway. And we're only going to have a field of 9 cars. It's a very small field, unfortunately. Number of people away at the moment, a number of people with personal commitments, and a couple of people wanting to watch the Formula One Grand Prix from Baku tonight rather than be in the race in an era where we have PVRs and digital recording and on-demand streaming. It's a very low number count.
Some people enjoy just watching it live, and I know we'll keep this stream a Baku spoiler-free zone, so people can continue to watch this all the way through and then start watching Baku later if they'd like.
Yeah, certainly. We'll keep that to ourselves for the moment. Well, the clock has gone 0. Brendan Ross has made his way back into the server, and we probably won't be very far away from going racing in tonight's proceedings. So 2 hours lie ahead of us, plus the formation lap. So about 2 hours and 5 minutes from now, we should have ourselves a race winner.
As you can see, the scenery has changed to dusk, with the wonderful Abu Dhabi Etihad logo up there as well. And the cars start to fill the grid.
Yes, now it's most
People
important.
have to remember to have their... Hopefully everyone has their headlights bound, because if you don't, you are not going to be completing this race because you'll get disqualified.
That is correct. So then it's also important to note the floodlights of the circuit is scheduled to come on 25 minutes into this race, and then 25 minutes after that, I'm told, headlights will be required. So about half the race to be completed with headlights on, or there or thereabouts.
Now, usually most of these guys will have the headlight button bound anyway, just because when you're on a fast lap, people like to turn on their headlights to let other cars know. So generally, most people will have them bound.
All right, now we've got a bit of an issue here.
Matt Williams didn't make the grid.
And Ozrob. So I'm not sure what's going on here, but they are not on the grid, and they will either start from the pit lane or something is going on. So, well, in the meantime, we'll run through this grid, Bagsy.
Yeah, well, Brendan Ross now on the front row all alone without Matt Williams. So FCR had a front row lockout, but is now, well, technically it is still a front row lockout for Brendan Ross. It's just all his lonesome. Matt Williams chilling out in the pit lane, still not sure what's happening there. Brenton Foley, third place for PBF. He'll be looking, he's got an extra place for himself now. He's starting in second. Paul Devonish is now going to have a clear run ahead of him because there is no one ahead of him. So it's going to be a good start for Devonish. The other Lamborghini of Bolger starts just behind Foley in fifth. Got Ozrob out in the lane already. So Ozrob has actually gained the position of Matt Williams because Matt Williams is still inside his garage. So not sure what's going on there. Hopefully not a problem for Matt Williams. Philip Boak in seventh, the other PBF race engineering car, and Glenn Miles in eighth place, just ahead of Lewis Wedding, who was probably on track for quite a good lap, at least second or third, but had a track cut, therefore he has ended up at the very back of the grid. Have all the work to do.
And that's the risk that you take when you want to do a one-lap qualifying run. You end up in a situation where you have to get it spot on, and he did not do that. So we'll wait and see how all this pans out. As you said, it's Going to be nice for Devonish. He's going to have some clear track ahead of him. That gap where Matt Williams was supposed to be is going to look rather inviting. Now, Devonish obviously can't. The whole inside row does not move up like the NASCAR situation does. Devonish is just going to have to leave that gap, stay alongside Foley, but it will afford him the luxury of, if he does get a better launch than Brendan Ross does when the green flag drops, he will be alongside and in a hurry. We did mention at the top of the show that he is probably one that's overdue for a win, given his run of luck recently. And just winding our way along the side of the marina there, you can see the yachts off to the right as they round this series of right-handers, which is turns 15, 16, and now on to turn 17. And then they'll swing left under the hotel, and then they'll be coming back around to the start line for 2 hours of racing. The 6th round of the AMS Oz GT3 World Challenge. Pace car should peel off to the right now, and does. And Devonish just needs to get up alongside Foley here for this start. And Matt Williams looks like he's still in the garage.
No, he's come out into the pit
come out
lane
now
now
to pit lane, and we are away for the 2 hours of Abu Dhabi, and it's a great launch for Brendan Ross. No worries whatsoever. Foley slots into second behind him. Devonish will take over third. Everyone now moves obviously up a position from where they were, in some cases 2, with the pit lane starts for Ozrob and for Matt Williams. And already under some pressure, Brendan Ross from Foley, and Devonish is closing in. Devonish having a very early look down at the inside of the turn 5-6 chicane complex. Foley goes a little bit wide. Now Devonish will get underneath here and has the inside line for the hairpin, and that was a very, very easy pass in the end of the day. Brendan Foley going wide, but there's still a long way to go. It's not the end of the world. And Ozrob and Matt Williams don't look like they've actually started.
They just started now, so they have to wait until the leader gets to the end of the first sector, which is halfway down the straight, so they are a long way back.
Well, Foley's had another little look at Devonish here at the chicane that punctuates the 2 straights, actually clouted the what they call the delineators. He's back up past Devonish now in a Lamborghini, and that puts Bolger back onto the back of Devonish. So Brendan Ross just starting to make a break for it here. Will has another look at the inside here of Foley. Foley just leaves him some space.
Matt Williams passed Ozrob almost straight away coming out the pits, so good move there from Matt Williams.
And most importantly, Lewis Wedding has cleared Glenn Miles very, very early in the piece, now sat up behind Phil Boak. So despite the fact that he didn't qualify where he wanted to, Lewis Wedding, he has indeed stayed on the back of this train, and he's not out of it by any means whatsoever. In actual fact, he's gained, in theory, of 3 places, because he's passed the 2 cars that were starting from the pit lane. Now, Bolger's had a moment somewhere as well, because he's dropped back behind Boak and now is in between Boak and Wedding. Lap 1 in the books. And Wedding now having a look down the inside of Steve Bolger, doesn't fight it. And easy pickings for Lewis Wedding. So up to 5th place in his McLaren. And now going to set his sights on the back of the PBF Bentley Continental of Phil Boak, who's just got a couple more car lengths compared to what he had before.
Oh, Foley with a big slide there coming out of the chicane.
Yeah,
it's going to be under pressure from Devonish down this straight here. If Devonish can get it all nice and tidy, which he has, he's going to be in the slipstream, but Foley's going to be in the slipstream from Ross.
He certainly is getting a little bit of a slipstream from Ross, but not as much as the slipstream that Devonish is probably getting from Foley. But I think he's a bit too far back here, Will. Closing, under brakes, no. Geez, Foley's driving it very, very hard into that chicane at the moment, and in actual fact, he's put himself under a lot more pressure than what he needed to do there. Devonish is literally under the rear diffuser of this Bentley Continental, and he's going to have overlap down here into the chicane at turns 11, 12 and 13, the left over right over left, and comfortably past. So a couple of exchanges between those two have been very clean and tidy. That's good at early pace to see. So it's now Brendan Ross leading from Will Devonish and PBF 3 and 4 through Foley and Boak. Wedding in 5th. Glenn Miles is, Steve Bolger still 6th, Glenn Miles 7th.
Oh, Foley's into the back of Devonish. Foley's got so much more speed in these twisty sections. You must be running a bit higher downforce than Devonish, because he's absolutely just flying up to the back of him and able to brake a lot later. Got a bit more confidence in that car in these twisty sections.
He certainly is. He's got way more confidence through the twisty sections. It's a little bit of a sitting duck down the straights, but he's definitely got a bit more cornering pace in that car. Meanwhile, Brendan Ross is kicking out to about a one and a bit second lead here, while the fight for second and third is on. Fast lap times coming in at the moment. Purple lap times. First it was Brendan Ross, then it was Devonish, and now it's Boak with the quickest lap of the race so far. Pace so far in the mid 208s. They all just start to settle in for the long haul here. Oh, and Foley's had a moment, and so too's Boak, and Devonish had a moment as well. And Lewis Weddy got a face full of smoke. They all somehow managed to redress their positions. But
I think Boak will start to let Foley through.
Yeah, that was wild. That was a little bit wild. Let's see if we can have a bit of a look and see how this all went down. We just saw the tail end of it, so Foley all out of shape. He actually gave Devonish a touch, and Devonish actually had to drift it round that corner. So Devonish did really, really good car control from Will there. And Phil Boak had to take the avoiding action, so very well done between all of those gentlemen.
Well, Boak has given up position, so I think Foley might have just said, nah, on you go. That was my fault, and you had to take avoiding action because of that. We'll see if it probably won't be reported after the race, considering it's Foley who was wronged and, wronged Devonish himself. So that one will probably be left to rest. But what it's done is brought Wedding right up to the battle now. He is on the tail of the two PBF cars.
He certainly is. And up until that point, Lewis had actually had set a purple Sector 1. Now, I'm not sure how he goes through Sector 2 when the timing loop gets triggered, but we'll soon find out if he's still on the purple sector or not. In actual fact, it looks like he still might be. In actual fact, a couple of drivers setting quick laps at the moment. Up the front, I think it's more than likely to be Brendan Ross. It looks like he could be setting a quick lap this time around. Let's have a look at the times as they come past. And it is Brendan Ross 208.0. Immediately surpassed by Wedding with a 207.8.
It was a very fast final sector for Lewis Wedding. It was
despite the
3
fact
tenths faster than Brendan Ross. Yeah, even though he's behind Foley.
Yeah, despite the fact he's behind the two PBF cars as well. Now, Wedding knows not to do anything silly here. You can see up the front that the pace... there's a moment there for Boak, and he's gone. And that actually, he'll surrender place to Wedding here. So Wedding's just gaining places by attrition at the moment. At this rate, they keep making mistakes. He's going to be into P2 or P3 very quickly.
Got a little bit of a nudge from Boak as they came through the hairpin, because Boak had a slightly faster line, but no damage done to any diffusers or front wings. But more importantly, Brendan Ross has not pulled out that big a gap. He's only 2 seconds ahead of Will Devonish at the moment. So he's not setting an insurmountable lead like we've seen him do at other tracks where he's been able to just romp away.
Yep. Oh, a little bit of a tight squeeze there on the exit of turn number 9 between Boak and Wedding. So Boak had a slipstream from Wedding. Wedding left him some space down the inside at the left-hander, but Boak went round the outside of 9, and they got a little bit close for comfort there, but they didn't come together, which is good.
Wedding got a bit squirrely off the chicane, which denied him the chance to get back at Boak down the second straight. Yeah. Boak gets very close to the wall there. Yeah. And he's got Wedding all wide again. Oh, so close there. Wedding's going to have a go down the inside here, but it's not usually a passing area. Just ask Michael Schumacher. They're side by side. Oh, well done by Wedding. Is he going to
Yeah.
get it stopped?
Yeah,
Yes.
pulls it off
Beautifully done
beautifully.
from Wedding.
Very, very nice. He stayed with him all the way. The only way you can affect that pass is to stay with your man around all those corners and be on the inside for the one that counts, which is turn 17, and make it happen. So he's done that, and that now solidifies P4 for Lewis Wedding. As I was saying before, Lewis had probably realised at the moment that the pace is not terribly hot out front at the moment, and that he just needs to settle in here. And when he was behind the two PBF cars, and probably just go into a bit of a fuel conservation mode, a little bit of lift and coast. We know he's the master at strategy calls when it comes to things such as that. Didn't quite get the strategy the way that he wanted it, or the way he wanted it to play out in Sepang. In actual fact, they were left hanging a little bit by the drivers that came in under the second safety car, and even we were surprised. Ben Rhodes been in the commentary box with myself, that the drivers behind were actually able to get that 90-minute race completed on one stop. So now what's Lewis doing here? He's pulling to the inside the track. I'm wondering if he's trying to break the toe of that Bentley, but the Bentley is far enough back that it's probably not going to be impacted so much by the wake being generated by the McLaren. In any case, they're all setting good purple sectors through Sector 1. So have a look at this for Sector 1 times. Brendan Ross, 47.1. Devonish, 47.3. Foley, 47.1. Wedding, 47.2. Bolger, 47.7. Phil Boak, 47.0.
Basically nothing between the top 5 at the moment, and really any one of these 5 could win the race. That's something that we did miss out on. We missed out on predictions for this race. Personally, I think it's going to be hard to go by Brendan Ross if he can keep it all together and everything sticks together for him. But really, any of the top 5 are realistic chances.
The two gentlemen that started from the pit lane, Osrob and Matt Williams, they really haven't made any terrible impressions on the time deficit between themselves and the leader at the moment. They're lapping in the 2 minute. Their best laps are in the 2-minute 9s. In actual fact, they did 2-minute 9.3 and a 2-minute 10.3 last time around, respectively. So then at this rate, they're going to need a safety car to come out. Brendan Ross in a 2:07.8, so shaving a few tenths. Wedding 2:07.6. So you're right, there's not much going on between these guys at the moment in terms of their outright pace. But Matt Williams and Osrob are going to need a safety car to come out to catch back up to the back of the field at this rate, because they are going to end up lapped at some point if the green flag continues to stay out.
Yeah, they haven't really been losing too much time. Just looking at Matt Williams at the moment, he is 53 seconds behind Brendan Ross at the moment, and about 47 seconds for the first sector, probably closer to 50 on the first lap due to the actual start and all that sort of chaos that happens. So they haven't lost a huge amount of time over, probably less than what Bolger has, to be honest, because Bolger is currently 14 seconds off the pace to the leaders, versus when you consider that they had to start a sector down, Matt Williams is only 4 seconds off the pace.
Yeah, and Steve Bolger was living with these top runners at the beginning of the race for the first lap or two, and he's just dropped back from the group at the moment, even though the group is rather strung out. Brendan Ross not really increasing his margin by very much. In fact, last time
it's
around,
up a whole
last
2 tenths in the last 3 laps.
Yeah, just with the ebbs and flows of things that were going on, the last lap around, he was 8 tenths of a second quicker than Devonish, but over the last few laps, it hasn't increased by very much overall, because best lap the best laps for each of them are quite far apart. They're over a second apart, but they haven't been able to lap consistently. And Wedding having another go here. He's looking at...
Yeah, speaking of consistent things, Wedding is consistently on the rear bumper of Foley for this whole last sector.
He certainly is. Foley's leaving him some space as well, and a penalty for Miles. So given he's out on the circuit, that would be a racetrack infringement.
Very early for a track cut one.
Very early to rack up 3, more importantly. So the Cadillac must be a handful at the moment. is the only real battle on track at the moment is this one between Wedding and Foley, as Boak has just dropped away from these guys at the moment. Little puff of smoke from Devonish ahead. And where's Brennan Ross? So here he is. Let's have a look at the kind of lines that he's taking at the moment, because he's just driving very, very smoothly. He's got a 2.3 second margin, which will be updated as we go through the Sector 1 split now. It's actually now to 2.8, so edging away very, very slowly. Driving very, very straight. Now, this is a man who's improved in leaps and bounds, Bagsy, over the course of the last 12 months, given from where he started in the TCC, in Supercars, and GT, and he's now, I guess, he's probably due for a promotion up into the pro ranks, given the calibre of driving that he's exhibited over the last sort of couple of months, especially in this series where he's got a win to his name, plenty of podiums and plenty of good results. He is definitely someone that I guess competitors start to fear a little bit. They start to wonder what sort of racecraft he's going to bring to each and every race, because he always seems to be there or thereabouts.
You're right, and he's been quite good. He's had very consistent performances, and really I think the only thing that's let him down has been the occasional error in pit stop strategy, or potentially putting too much fuel in the car, or forgetting to change tyres, little things like that. So really, once he gets that done, he'll be the whole package in terms of endurance racing specifically. But at the moment, in any of the other categories, you'd say he's one of the best people, because he's very, very, as I say, as he slides to the first corner, I was wondering if he was going to go around. He's been quite good at just keeping on the track and keeping that pace up, like a absolute metronome he is at the moment. So doing quite well, and let's hope after heaping all these praises on him, he doesn't have an issue.
Yes, certainly so. And he can also qualify well, which is important too. He consistently qualifies in the top 3 or 4 rows of the grid, and always sets himself up for a good haul of points as well. And at the moment, he's driving very smoothly. There's no, lariness like we tend to see out of Brenton Foley, with getting on the loud pedal a little too early and gassing up the rear tyres or drifting it through corners. Knows the limits, knows how to drive the car. He's had some good tutelage as well from Matt Williams and the multi-time champ in Greg Nangles. Greg obviously having driven and won the Formula 3 title last year, having won the LMP2 class in the WEC series last year as well. He's had some good people to learn from, more importantly, and good help with the car setup. He got his head screwed on the right way when it comes to GT racing at the moment. Meanwhile, though, while we have been talking about him, he was actually pinged for a track violation on the previous lap, so his last lap did not get registered. He got track violation through Sector 2, so as you said, Bagsy, just the odd error here or there does come into play. In actual fact, Will Devonish has started to close that margin down a little bit now. It's now around the 1 second mark. Now, there's no DRS, even though this is a Formula 1 circuit, there's no DRS, but when Ross starts to come into the gun sights of Will Devonish, and Devonish can start to pick up the toe, then, as Jim Ross in the WWE would say, business will officially start to pick up.
It's been a while since I've heard a WWE reference.
Yeah, good old JR. He hasn't been around for a while, but it's he's one of the people when we talk about commentators, I guess, as well. One of my idols was Rex Hunt, but also I used to watch a lot of wrestling when I was a lot younger, and also used to love Jim Ross. He used to come up with a lot of good analogies, like there's going to be a good old slobber knocker or a good old fashioned barn burner. So it's an American, basically.
Yeah, and certainly one to be able to turn an excellent phrase at the right time. As anyone who browses Reddit too much or watches some of the older wrestling videos, I think it's Hell in a Cell in 1998, when Mankind was thrown off the top by Undertaker.
Yes.
And believe he said, "As God is my witness, he is broken in half,"
Mm.
but with much more gusto and much better than I could ever
Well,
attempt to try and do it.
well, speaking of wrestling, this lead is being wrestled away from Brendan Ross right now by Will Devonish in the Belong Lamborghini, because he's now having a look at him down the inside at the chicane here for 11, 12 and 13, and that's a pass for the lead. So what's happened to Brendan Ross? Has he gone into a fuel conservation mode, or is he been... He's had a fairly scruffy lap. In actual fact, Devonish has been pinged for a track violation on the previous lap too, and Foley. So wondering whether or not there's a little bit of track limits coming into play here, with a few corners being taken a bit more aggressively than some of these drivers would like. But nonetheless, Devonish has wrestled this lead away from Brendan Ross 20 minutes into this race. And we're coming up on the point in time now where the lights on the circuit are going to be in full illumination. They are coming on right now. And Boak with a penalty. Boak with a drive-through penalty. That has got to be for a track violation. And we're not 100% sure where that has happened. Let's see if we can actually pick up Phil Boak. Let's see if we can get this on the replay at all as to where he would have triggered this, because... Or maybe right there. It was either that corner right there, or right there. That's where it was. He took the second last corner too aggressively, and in actual fact, that would have come up on his dash straight away to the point where he probably wouldn't have been able to come in and serve it anyway. So we'll probably have to serve it this time around.
But it's the biggest thing now for Boak though is that he's already at the limit for track cuts, so every single track cut he gets from now on is another drive-through penalty. So he has to drive that thing so gingerly, which is terrible when he's got Brendan Ross. Something's happened to Brendan Ross.
Yeah, I'm trying to work out what happened to Brendan Ross as well here. Did we get anything on a replay here? No, we don't get anything on a replay. So
Foley's round.
Foley around, so we're going to go back to the live pictures here and see if we can pick up Foley. And we've got a full course caution. That's generated the full course caution for Foley. Where is Foley at the moment? Do we have Foley on the replay here?
He's got back running now.
Yeah, we just catch it. Oh, Wedding took good avoiding action, and so did Brendan Ross there, and so did Boak. So. Now, where's that? That is between the chicanes, I think. So between the straights. Yeah, that's the straight between the chicanes. So that's turn 8 and 9. So...
You know who's going to be absolutely kicking themselves is Boak, because if he'd come in and taken that drive-through penalty, he would have just sauntered right back up to the end of the line and been all good. But now he's going to have to wait for the safety car to come out, go around for... So Brendan Ross has just hit the wall.
Brendan Ross? He has too.
Third to last
and he's got
corner.
damage. And he's got damage as well.
He's done some damage there.
So this is all happening.
All in closed as well until the first time.
And on top of that,
safety car comes
and on top of that, Brendan Ross did cut the corner, one of the corners there as well, and he was well wide of the apex for turn 19 and just careened straight into the wall. He's lost a little bit of the dive planes there on the front of the car. Well.
Yeah, so unfortunately for Boak, he's going to have to wait for the safety car, do his pit stops and the like, and then wait for the safety car to come in before he can serve his drive-through, which is going to automatically put him 20 or so seconds off the back of the field.
Now, where's the safety car at the moment? I'm assuming it's up this straight here at the moment somewhere.
I don't, but I can't see it on...
There it is. Yeah, here it is. It's up just past the Sector 1 split now. So you mentioned that Phil Boak's going to be the one kicking himself, but you know who's going to be absolutely delighted with this is going to be Matt Williams and Ozrob, because this is precisely what they needed. They needed a safety car to close that gap down to the leading groups and get back within an earshot of making any sort of strategy for them work. In actual fact, it's probably beneficial for them too. They would have started with full tanks of fuel. They wouldn't have had to burn any fuel on the outlap, so they're potentially in a little bit of a better position here. I'm wondering whether or not anybody's going to come in this lap. It's close to the point where you would consider getting home from you know, if you're working backwards, getting home with at least 2 stops from here, you could still do it, and then maybe have a slightly longer final stop.
You'd probably, I'd say, be better off waiting another car because we know the safety car is going to be at least one more lap out, and it
Mm.
can vary from anything from 2 to 5 laps, I
Yeah,
believe, as the field checks up because the safety car is very slow through some of these corners,
yeah. At the
which
moment,
I'm sure they will have been warned about in the driver's briefing.
I think it's only doing about 80 kilometres an hour at the moment too, Bagsy. There's definitely one taker who we know is going to be in the pit lane this time around, and that's Brennan Ross, because he looks like he's going to have some damage to repair if things look like the way they are. But the person I would
The
expect
pits
to
will be
come,
open
yeah,
to the whole field as well at the
yeah,
moment.
everyone's still on the lead lap, so it'll be open to the whole field. Uh, the person that I expect to come in on this lap is actually Phil Boak, and it's to complete a full pit stop, top off with fuel, and then he'll come in on at the end of the first lap of green flag running and serve his drive-through penalty, because if he was to pit under green and then serve it again, his race would be ruined. So he can pit and get away with it.
Yeah, certainly. And it looks like Devonish is lining up to go in. Yep, so Devonish in, Wedding stays out. So interesting from Wedding, Boak is in, Ross is in, Foley's in,
The whole field
Bolger,
is in,
Matt Williams.
apart from Lewis Wedding, and Osrob coming around
Interesting
now.
strategy choice from Lewis Wedding. And Osrob
Oh,
is going quite fast and is going into
coming
the
in.
pits as well.
Yeah, so
Um,
everybody in bar Wedding.
and we're not sure about Glenn Miles because he's
He was
still
a
a
bit further
fair
away.
way off the back.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I expect
very,
Glenn Miles to be in. All right, let's see what
very
happens
busy
in
pit
here.
lane.
Let's see what happens in here. The Lamborghinis are line astern. They've got their own pit bays, which is good. Now, Osrob's in the fast lane at the moment. And the good thing is there's plenty of gap between... Actually, have the Lamborghinis got their own bay? I don't think they have. I think that Steve
There's
Bolger's having to queue here.
It's unfortunate for Bolger. You can drive your car alongside a car that's already in the pit box and sort of cheat it a little bit, so you've got two people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they've
so
had to
Bolger was not
queue.
getting service
They've had
there.
to queue. Did the PBF cars have to queue? I don't think they
I
did.
don't
Oh,
think so. No.
no. So that's a loss for Steve Bolger in all of that, because that means that Osrob's going to get out before he does. Now, they're just going to be wary here. Glenn Miles is in the fast lane. And Glenn Miles comes in. And, yeah, that's a big loss for Steve Bolger. So,
Actually, I think Boak might have had to. Sorry, Foley might have had to have queued there.
and
I
Matt
think you're
Williams
right.
is,
I
and
think they're
actually,
going to have to queue.
Matt Williams is going to get out as well ahead of Steve Bolger. So that puts Bolger down to what will be 7th. Glenn Miles will pick up 8th. And Foley, you're right. Foley had to queue as well. So, actual
I
fact,
think teams not realizing.
Foley becomes the big
I think,
loser out of that.
yeah, the teams aren't realizing they can work together and park on sort of put half your car on in the red box that is your pit box, and the other car can slide up alongside them, and you can both get serviced at the same time. But a lot of the teams seemingly forgetting that one.
Well, here from Foley's engine note, car running in the higher gears at the moment, just trying to save as much fuel as possible.
But yeah, we've come in. The safety cars come out pretty much the perfect time because we're exactly when people were planning on pitting anyway. Really, so it's just a bit of fuel is going to be saved. It means shorter pit stops at the end, but you need to do that calculation to figure out how much you're going to need at the end and try and spend the least time stationary in the final stop to gain time.
Well, this is what we saw in Sepang when the second safety car came out. Is that Wedding was at the head of the field and he actually had Devonish and Foley behind him. And in came Brendan Ross, in came Jamie Snow, and the other guys that were behind him. And they managed to get home on that particular occasion. Now, this is way too early for this to happen, but all the fields now slowly catching back up to the back of the safety car train.
You know what I think Wedding is going to do here? He's going to not come in this lap, but probably the next lap he'll come in. He will get a full service. He'll have 2 safety car laps less, or extra fuel in his tank, should I say. and it means that
He's in
if we
now.
go,
Here he
he
comes.
comes in now.
Oh,
But
no.
no, he's faking it out. He's trying to fake
Oh.
people out. He's been very sneaky, is Lewis Wedding,
He's
and
been-
a few people being a bit naughty with the commitment line there as well. But Wedding playing sneaky games, trying to sneakily win the prize, but he's almost certainly going to come in on one of these next couple of laps, and he's going to have a pit lane to himself, and then on the green flag stops, he's also going to have
Yeah.
a pit lane to himself because he's saved this little bit extra.
And Wedding's being smart here. We're just watching him here on the broadcast. You can see that when the safety car checks up, he knows where it's checking up. And in actual fact, is just running a little bit wider to continue his lift and coast efforts to save fuel. Every little bit is bringing him back into play here, just in terms of the length of time that he's going to be stationary for when it comes to how much fuel needs to go in that car.
The thing is, he's already passed half of these people or more already, and he knows he can get past them, so he's just going to pass them again once we get out from under the safety car.
Well, we're approaching, well, only just over 30 seconds away from the 1/4 distance in this 2-hour event. And at the moment, we're under the control of the safety car. So, quick order check. Lewis Wedding out in front. The only man not to take service under the safety car. Everybody else behind him has stopped. Will Devonish for Willett Race Engineering, Lamborghini and Belong is in second place, but when the pit stop for Lewis Wedding takes place, will inherit the lead of this race, should he be in this position. Phil Boak has a drive-through penalty hanging over his head. It was awarded to him in the lap prior to the safety car coming out. So he actually cut the second last corner, and had he been able to get into the pit lane and serve it immediately, he would be delighted this safety car did not come out at the right moment for him. Brennan Ross, the early race leader, dropped down to 4th place. Was passed by Will, and fell back to 4th very quickly afterwards, which we're not 100% sure why. Ozrob, he started from the pit lane. He was scheduled to start 6th on the road, starting from the pit lane, and he now finds himself in the 5th place position, having the safety car brought him back to the back of that field. Likewise for Matt Williams, he was scheduled to start out of P2, and he's now back up to P6. He also started from the pit lane. Big losers out of that pit stop sequence, or one of the big losers, was Steve Bolger. He was sitting up in the 6th place quite happily, or 5th or 6th place quite happily, and he ended up in P7, having to stack behind the other Lamborghini of Devonish. Glenn Miles, surprisingly, is 8th after all of that, and the reason he is 8th is because Foley had to queue as well, and he was the cause of the yellow flag and the safety car, and he is now P9. So all runners still running, which is the most important thing. But the safety car controlling this field, we believe, looks like probably at least one more lap. We'll soon find out. Safety car does tend to turn its lights off rather late if it is coming into the lane.
Does Wedding go in? No. This
No.
is very surprising, because if the safety car comes in this lap, Wedding is going to be, after this lap, Wedding is going to be very much out of luck.
We'll soon find out. What lap times are we doing? We're doing 3:41s at the moment. And who's that coming in? That's Bo coming in. Now that's
Boak, Bolger and Foley.
Now that's probably not a bad move for those gentlemen.
Yeah, trying to head off Wedding's extra bit of strategy, basically.
Yeah, probably not a bad idea. And obviously Boak having that drive-through penalty over his head as well, he needs to be in a best position to handle that as well, given he's going to have to serve it. And he'll actually come out when he has to serve that penalty. If he can maintain the gap to Lewis Wedding wherever he comes out at, then he will actually be in front of him once Lewis comes in to take service. And Foley, given he was at the back anyway, just topping off. So it wouldn't surprise me if the safety car comes in this lap. I mean, this is the 3rd lap under safety car, I believe. We actually came out, everybody went in, Lewis Fate going in last time around, and actually this is lap 4, so this is the 4th lap of safety car running, and this is eating into the expected race distance that we were expecting to get around the 53 to 57 lap mark, and we're probably going to be around the low 50 mark at this rate, probably about 50 to 54 I would say, if it keeps going the way that it is.
Yeah, they're still doing a decent, despite this very relatively lengthy safety car period, still doing a decent clip of laps, as looks like Foley and Boat just swapped positions. Not sure what the deal is there, but they did. So maybe the game's been telling them to swap around. Safety cars goes very slowly at some points, and it just seems like the safety car line wasn't quite. We know that Automobilista can have issues with safety cars at times, sometimes quite significant ones, where the safety car just stands on the brake pedal for a bit before turning into the pits.
Well, we're going through the chicane at the bottom of the circuit at the moment. We're in sector 2. I'm just waiting for the word to come down that it is the safety car is coming in, so no real notice just yet, but we expect that it will be in this lap. Just doing a quick calculation for you on the fuel strategy part of things. So we've got an hour and 25 minutes remaining, which is 85 minutes. And if we run that into the kind of lap times that they were doing before that, it means we're probably going to get another 40 laps in. So we can probably still make 54 laps, but we are going to have to stop again. So we're probably going to get somewhere around about the 52, 53 laps if we can get back to green flag running very, very soon. Now, it's getting to the point in time as well where headlights are mandatory. So if your headlights are not on, then you will be disqualified. Safety car is in.
Wait, I don't understand wedding strategy.
Well, let's not guess him,
Surely he
Bagsy,
hasn't
because
saved this much fuel.
let's
Yeah,
not guess him, because he's fooled us once before, and I'm sure he'll fool us again. Green flag is in the air, and wedding bolts, and away we go again. Looking like they're fanning out a couple of cars wide here. Devonish holds MP2. Ozrob down the inside for P3 rather early in the stint here, and he came from a long way back. He got a really good launch.
Ross is going to come under attack from Matt Williams almost immediately. He seems to have lost his mojo a little bit. Maybe he's just going to take a little bit longer to get up to speed after that safety car.
He certainly has lost a bit of his mojo, and wondering if he might be coming the cork in the champagne bottle here at the moment, because Devonish and Ozrob are starting to clear away a little bit, and there's now a bit of a queue starting to form already behind Brennan Ross very, very early in this second stanza of the race.
Speaking of clearing away, Wedding is already 2 seconds up the road from Will Devonish after 1 second.
He'll have the hammer down. He'll absolutely have the hammer down, and trying to put margin in between himself and the chasing pack. Through the chicane they go. Yeah, you're right. I think Brennan Ross has lost this little bit of mojo, because Matt Williams behind was much, much tidier through that chicane. Carrying in the wheel tracks now. Has a look to the inside. No, maybe a little bit too far back to challenge, and they just hold off for the moment. Yeah, just getting back to your point, I mean, you don't understand Lewis's strategy, Bagsy, but we did see what he did to us at Road America last year around this time, where he did not take tyres. He did a fuel-only stop for his first stop, and we thought his tyres were crying foul and that he ruined his strategy, and then he came out and absolutely blitzed the final stanza of that race after his second stop, which he did take tyres on. So he does know how to pull it off, and he would have been sitting there all 4 laps of that safety car working out what exactly he was going to do. So out in front, here he is.
As a result, after 1 lap, it's almost a 3-second gap.
And
standing back to Devonish.
2:08.4 for a resuming lap time as well is not too shabby either.
Boak comes in for his drive-through.
That's the smartest thing that he could have done. There he is, off to the left. Glenn Miles will go past. And that's a very, very slow pit lane at 80 kilometres an hour.
See how much time he loses from it, because he was right behind Bolger before, and he's just coming underneath the first corner at the moment. So it will give you a reading on how far he is from Bolger when he comes out and reaches full racing speed. It looks like he is about 15 seconds behind Bolger, so it's cost him essentially 15 seconds, that drive.
It's actually not too bad considering. In actual fact, we can just see him in the background there. As Devonish is still being hounded here by Ozrob, who's got like a second wind at the moment. He was just tootling along with Matt Williams for that first part of the race. The safety car has given him and Matt Williams both a renewed lease on life at the moment, and they're both trying to make a fist of things, but he lost a bit of time there to Devonish out of the chicane. Now he's going to do all that work all over again. Matt Williams still on the back of his FCR teammate. Now, they've been not wanting to come to blows, those two. They do have a chat channel in the FCR Discord that's something called along the lines of remorse after hitting your teammate, or feelings of remorse after hitting your teammate, because that has happened a few times in the FCR camp.
With that many FCR drivers, it's not really surprising that they're going to run into each other.
No, you're certainly right. Brendan Ross, Greg Nangle, Matt Williams, Jamie Snow. There's at least 4 or 5 drivers, and I'm wondering if Ozrob just got may have got a track violation there for cutting the second to last corner. We'll soon find out. Lewis Wedding, very, very quick laps he's turning now, 2:07.2, and that is some considerable margin quicker than the drivers behind as the times start to come in. Devonish in second place is 1.3 seconds further back of that. Ozrob was all right. He didn't get penalised on that particular occasion, but it looks like some of the other cars behind may very well have. So if that's anything to judge by what our live timing says.
Wedding has just set a time that's half a second faster than what anyone else has done so far. So he is absolutely on it. I can't believe his car has sipped its fuel this much that he's still able to keep going. He's almost, with another safety car, he's easily playing himself into two-stop contention versus one-stop contention.
I was just thinking the same thing. He does need another safety car for his strategy to work, and it's trying to work out when it comes out would be the most important thing. Oh, Brendan Ross got very close to the back of Ozrob there, and that's allowed Matt Williams through. That's an easy pass. Job done for Matt Williams, but another mistake from Brendan Ross. You touched on this earlier, Bagsy, the fact that he sometimes makes the odd mistake here or there, and it costs him, and when it does cost him, it costs him dearly. Another control penalty for Glenn Miles. Matt Williams was out of the slipstream really, really early, but Ross just couldn't get it stopped.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Ross there, who's just sort of tried to be the last of the late breakers, but Matt Williams just like, oh, just hit the brakes early and watch you sail away into the distance.
And Matt Williams
so
had a
well
really
played
good
there by Matt Williams. He knew exactly what he was trying to do there.
And he had a really good slipstream as well too down that straight. So another mistake from Brendan Rossi going wide at turn 17.
Wedding is very much lifting, coasting, and his gap has dropped a little bit. So I'm wondering if he's getting almost close on fuel. No, he's going around again. So never mind. I think it was just a bit of the way the track works out, because the gap is back up to 4.5 seconds.
Certainly
But
is.
Wedding is absolutely going for it.
And now this battle for second place on the rostrum at the moment has become a 3-car battle. So that now that Matt Williams has been released from his teammate, he's now going to have to apply the blowtorch to Ozrob, who in turn is applying the blowtorch to Devonish. All 3 of these men overdue for a win in this series. They'll stand to be P1, 2 and 3 when Wedding decides to come in and take service, but that question is now not a matter of if, but when.
It looks like Devonish has put in some decent middle sectors. He must be running a bit of a lower downforce setup because he's half a second faster than Wedding in the middle sector, but Wedding is thoroughly trouncing him elsewhere.
Yeah, his last time around. Oh, he's gone deep. Devonish has gone deep. And, that Brendan
So is
Ross has
Ross.
gone as well. What on earth happened there? And that's just a gimme. And Matt Williams has come through and taken not only Will Devonish's spot, but he's also taken Osrob's spot as well. That was mighty, mighty bizarre. I want to have a look at this from the Matt Williams point of view.
Oh, Osrob's tries to go back through and has gone way too deep.
So Matt Williams made the pass on Osrob quite easily. Brendan Ross went off in the background. Ahead of them, Devonish went off. So Matt Williams, just by keeping his nose clean, just sailed on past.
If we hold on Osrob in this replay, as they go down the straight, you'll see Osrob just totally misses where he's meant to hit the brakes and sails on.
Yeah, just catching the back end of it now, actually, just right down at the bottom end of turn 11. And I think he probably would have been awarded a track violation for that too, because that was not only a very fast rejoin, but he didn't come back to the track where he went off either, so probably doesn't help his cause.
Wedding in the pits, finally.
All right, finally. So, here we go. Lewis is in. That will cycle the lead, which we thought was going to go to Will Devonish. It now cycles it to Matt Williams. Now the question is, where does Wedding pop out in all of this? And actually, I'd like to see where he comes out in relation to Phil Boak, because obviously Boak had to serve a drive-through.
Yeah, Boak's already gone past him, and we reckon, a minute for a pit stop or thereabouts.
Well, Boak's coming through just now, so he's crossing the start-finish line now, and yeah, he's comfortably ahead of Wedding. So we're just trying to see if we can pick up where Wedding happens to be. Glenn Miles coming in to serve his penalty.
Wedding, unfortunately, because of the way the cameras are laid out.
Yeah, correct.
When people are in the pits, it puts them right at the... It'll just give us a shot of the starting gantry, but when it does give us that shot, you can just see a little bit of his car between a team's pit wall. So
yeah, Devonish has slipped
he's
back up
he's on his way now.
Devonish has slipped back up the inside of Matt Williams in the first sector, and now he's having to hold him off through sector 2 through the chicane.
At the same time,
and Foley's now
went up the
inside of Osrob. Yeah, so we just call that in back a shot.
Big slide from Foley though. Osrob's going to get back at him.
He certainly is in the back a shot. They're side by side, the Bentley Continental and the BMW. Osrob will have the inside here for the 11, 12 and 13 chicane at the bottom end of the circuit. Matt Williams thinks a bit of it. Oh, Osrob got in there very, very hot. Jeez, he did a good job to pull that up. He was very close to not only hitting Matt Williams, but he was also very close to being clouted by Foley at the same time.
Heads up drove from Foley there. He
absolutely
recognised the potential for disaster and very much stopped it from happening and didn't try for a mad dive for position, which is always a good thing. Wedding back out on track, and he is 1 minute behind the leaders now, so he had a good 5-second gap, so about 65 seconds for a pit stop. As Glenn Miles gets another drive-through penalty. That is unfortunate for him. Every single track cut is going to cost him an extra 15 or so seconds, which is very unfortunate. But yeah, now it's to see, is Wedding's going to turn the wick up and put in lap after lap, or is he going to try and be conservative and wait for another safety car?
I don't know. I think Wedding now does he need a safety car to make this work? This is the part of the strategy element we need to figure this out. Right, he more than likely will need one. It's also going to be a matter of when these guys all have to stop that are on screen at the moment. They're obviously going to have to stop at least once, if not twice more. The question is going to be how long
without a safety car, basically everyone has to stop twice more, because they all stopped apart from Bolger, Boak and Foley, who came in the last lap before the safety car came in, which was really only 2 extra safety car laps worth of fuel that they put in. It was a very small amount, but they are the ones who can go a bit longer than Ross, Williams, Miles and Devonish and Osrob. So we'll see what happens, but basically at this point everyone starts to stop 2 more times, and Wedding is a minute down, so he's really banking on another safety car or his pace, or he thinks he can make it on 1 more stop somehow. But I really doubt that, because that would essentially be doing 2 40-minute stints, which would require a lot of sipping of fuel. and I mean, maybe he can do it, but
They're all
I
going
have
wide.
my doubts.
They're all going wide there off the exit of turn 14. We saw Foley slip up the inside of Ozrob on the run to the turn 8 and 9 chicane, and all three of these gentlemen went wide at turn number 14. In actual fact, Foley's gone very wide there at 18, and Ozrob's still staying with him at the moment. But Will Devonish had set purple sector 1, he'd set purple sector 2. What's it going to be like for sector 3 and the final sector and his overall lap time? Let's have a look. It's a 2:07.556, so he dropped away in that last sector, but still a very quick time. He's only 0.3 of a second slower than Wedding's quickest lap time, but he was setting fantastic sectors for sector 1 and sector 2.
We've had Bolger as DNF'd.
So first retirement,
just
Steve
having-
Bolger.
Yeah, just having a look at the replay, looks like it may have been a connection issue because I've got him just coming out of the third corner, and then he just sort of slides off the track and vanishes for a sec, and then he, after about 30 seconds or so, he reappears and just straight lines essentially, doesn't make any deviation, hits the inside wall at the hairpin, and then the outside wall, and nothing before DNFing. So that looks like an internet issue potentially for Steve Bolger, as Miles gets another drive-through penalty.
I think we're just going to have to stop calling Glenn Miles' drive-through penalties. He's got 4 now, so it's not good. Let's put it that way.
It is unfortunate for he.
Well, meanwhile, Lewis Wedding, gap to the leader is 1 minute and 1 second. So it's hovered around this mark now for a little while. We'll get a readout now. Just when he comes down to the first sector split, which is halfway up the back straight, which is a little bit different. Normally, the first sector split readout happens just before the hairpin. Oh dear.
We need a little ding noise now for every time Miles gets a drive-through penalty.
Wedding is now just just over 1 minute, or just under 1 minute 1 second behind. So it's ebbing and flowing. I was going to see if I could produce a ding noise, but I don't think I can at the moment from my computer whenever it happens. Ding.
There we go. There's 6.
If you're keeping scoring at
He's
home,
got 2 to serve.
Yeah.
Really, if he'd gone in and served his drive-through that he had just got then, he wouldn't have got the drive-through for going wide in the last corner.
No, certainly
So
not.
that one he sort of brought on himself there.
Yeah.
He's also being lapped at the moment, so that's probably part of the reason. He's going wide to try and get out of the way of the front runners, and then he's getting pinged for doing that. He's not getting out the throttle.
Well, where is he on track at the moment, actually? He's 8th on
first sector.
He's 8th on the road. He's in the first
just
sector.
behind Ozrop and Foley.
Yeah. So, not to maybe to liven up this broadcast a little bit for anyone who happens to be watching. We'll take a few bets from the live chat as to how many more penalties the drive-through that Glenn Miles is going to end up with, because right now he's sitting on 6, and we've still got over an hour to go in this race. So post your comments. Let's see who's closest to pin. Brian Walsh probably not going to be too happy with this, but sorry, Brian. We've got to liven up this broadcast somehow, as Wedding sets the fastest lap. We're now into the quickest laps, now into the 2:06s. So Wedding's not...
That's a very fast lap with a full tank of fuel.
Extremely quick. That's getting into qualifying pace, considering his quickest lap across the weekend, as you said earlier, was a 2:06.659. He's now just 0.2 off of that. That's extremely fast. His middle sector was mega. It was a 55.8 on that last tour.
And just hearing from Bolger in the chat that he had a game crash, and that's what caused his DNF. So unfortunate for Bolger there.
Very close to being accurate with the connection-based issue, but not too far away.
Devonish just doing a decent job out front. He's got a 3-second buffer back to Matt Williams, and just keeping it all together fairly nicely at the moment.
And now he's driving the car the way that he probably needs to drive his car, just nice and smooth and straight, and as he comes to the line now. His lap time is a 2:07.9, and his previous tour was a 2:07.8. So he's just consistently putting it together at the moment, which is what he wants. Wedding is still over a minute behind. The question I'm going to start throwing up now, Bagsy, is depending how much green flag running we happen to get. Oh, that's another drive-through penalty, but that's not. But that's not.
Boak.
That's for Boak this time. So you can't score
Went
that.
wide on the final corner.
Is that the? Oh, that's the final corner. So not the second to last corner where he had been picked up before. The final corner. So everyone pushing the limits a little bit. Now, sorry, Bagsy. Just back to my point that I was just about to make. Inevitably, when these gentlemen have to stop, at this stage we suspect it's going to be a green flag stop. But what would happen if any of them happen to stop under green flag and then the safety car was to come out and potentially, stop these people from having to, that need to stop, from stopping? That would potentially cause quite a little bit of trouble for the strategy people on the wall, I would say.
Yeah, it's definitely the potential for a span to be thrown loose. There's always that, they talk about it in supercars a lot, there's that danger zone where your opponents have come in and pit and you haven't, but if a safety car would come out, then you're going to have a large issue with pits if the pits close, sort of thing. So it's something that, yeah, you've got to be careful about. You don't want to leave too much time after your opponent has pit, because that'll cause you a lot of drama. I was having a look at the gap from Devonish to Wedding is now 57 seconds, so it's slowly closing down. You don't think that if we continue green and everyone has to make 2 more stops, you don't think Wedding will catch up to the rest of the field in that time? His next person on track is going to be Boak, who's going to serve a drive-through soon, so they'll be quite close to each other in the near future. But you don't think Wedding can make up that time if everyone has to make 2 more stops. If he can only do it on 1 more stop, and everyone else has to do 2, then, well, obviously he's going to be a fair way ahead. But I don't think that's going to happen.
No, not at this stage. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. The only closest battle on track at the moment is Foley and Ozrob, which is currently over 3rd place. As Boat gets another drive-through penalty. So now, has he just served his drive-through penalty? I think he has. So he's probably been pinged for speeding in the lane.
No, he didn't, because he was on the other side of the pit wall. So I think that's another track cut. Yeah, it looks like he went wide at the final corner yet again. So I think that's 2 for Boat right there.
Yeah.
He's going to have a look as he goes through the first corner. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's 2 on the final corner in 2 laps for Boat. So once again, if he'd just gone through the pits and served that 1 drive-through, he would have been fine.
That's the thing. You're better off serving penalties as quickly as they come up, because if you don't, and as you saw what happened during the safety car period, he got caught by it. So if he had been able to serve it, well, chalk another one up. If you're counting at home, there's 7. We're certainly keeping count here as I write another one down on my pad. We are playing closest to pin with Mr. Miles at the moment for Playboy Racing.
Yeah, it's just coming towards the hairpin at the far end of the circuit. He just decided that he was going to miss the chicane before that and did not slow down enough, so the game was like, you're taking the piss, mate. Here's another drive-through penalty. So the Miles with 7 so far.
Yeah, one part of the work that I've been doing at the moment as part of ARW is looking at some of the tracks that we're likely to be running or likely to be suggested for voting for the new season coming up. If you haven't been paying attention to the ARW channel, we've been doing some testing, and it's been decided we're doing DRM cars for our next Wednesday night series of events. But the tracks that I've been looking at as part of some track testing has given me an understanding of how the track limits actually work, and when track violations get triggered when they actually shouldn't be triggered, and how to correct those. Now, in a situation like you just mentioned with Glenn Miles going straight on at the chicane, which the game sees as a corner cut, given you've covered a certain distance over a set period of time, that's how it realises there's a cut there. You basically have your line of the track where it's supposed to go, and you have another line behind that that says if you cross over this line, then and you take more time to cross between these two waypoints than it normally would otherwise take, or less time, sorry, then you end up with a track violations. That's how it all works out. In some cases, what we've been witnessing is some tracks have their track limits actually set on the wrong side of the racing line. So in some circuits, such as what Foley's doing now, where you've gone all four wheels to the wrong side of the white line, it should technically be awarding you a track cut. But in the case here, the violation point's probably moved a bit further to the left, so he doesn't get penalised for it. But in some other corners, it'll be right on there. So some tracks where I have seen, you can actually have two wheels on the curb and two wheels on the correct side of the painted line and be awarded a track cut, which is not entirely correct. But some of the lines we're seeing here, some drivers are putting all four wheels over the white lines, just like Matt Williams did just ahead of Foley there, but they're getting away with it because the track violations are not kicking in. That line that it detects on is moved too far back. So there's some corners that these drivers have worked out that they can get away with, and some corners that they're realising very quickly if they are too aggressive, then they end up in trouble. As Matt Williams goes wide off the final corner and actually gets a track penalty for that. So same sort of thing that Boker's done. That's going to take him out of second place when he serves that penalty, but that's a silly thing to do. He just went wide, kept his foot in it, and that what he needed to do was get out of the throttle because he's covered the distance in a lesser time than what it normally would have been if he was on the racing line, so, or actually on the racetrack. So that's why it gave him the penalty there.
That's very unfortunate there. Devonish, music to his ears, because he's just seeing all the people behind him just drop out and have issues. It's also music to the ears of Wedding, because this is bringing more people back into his lair, coming back to be overtaken by him. There's less time that he has to make up to those people in front. We'll be hoping Devonish has the same issue as well, because at the moment the gap is still 56 seconds between Wedding and Devonish, as Wedding goes fastest yet again. But yeah, we've also just passed the halfway mark of the race. We have 1 hour gone, 1 hour remaining, and we'll be expecting pit stops in the relatively near future as well, I believe.
Well, let's have a quick look through your running order at the 1 hour mark of this race. Half distance. As Murray Walker would say, with half the race gone, there's still half the race to go, and the halfway point leader is Will Devonish, and he's got a very nice gap at the moment. This is the biggest gap that we've seen any of the leaders have had in the race so far. Nearly 5 seconds for the Lamborghini driver. Going the wrong way there. Brenton Foley has taken over second place as Matt Williams has gone off the track and had surrendered not only second place, but also will have to serve a drive-through. There he is. We'll see if he comes in this lap. Behind him, the other man who started from the pit lane, Ozrob, up into P4, will soon be P3. Brennan Ross has dropped off the back of the leaders. He is now P5. Phil Boak, P6, having served a number of penalties, and he's quite some considerable margin off the back at the moment, in need of a safety car. Lewis Wedding, P7, having finally stopped under green flag. Glenn Miles has another penalty to serve in 8th, and Steve Bolger, the only retirement so far. Now, Matt Williams has not served his penalty at the moment, so he's got another 2 laps to serve that. Just working through some point standings at the moment just to see where everybody would be placed if positions were as they were. So just to give you an update as to where things are at. So Will Devonish at the moment would be inheriting 30 points for this win. It would actually push him onto the top 10 page, but not enough to threaten what the leaders are currently doing. But if we have a little bit look further down, Brendan Ross currently occupies the 5th place position as the race leader. That's enough, or there's the as the points leader, it's enough for 11 points, so he would then move up to 99 if that's where he is right now. Wedding, currently out in P7, he would inherit 9 points, which would move him on to 88, which is the same as what Brendan Ross has right now. So that would mean that he would lose another point of advantage. Foley currently occupies P2, which is good enough for 25 points. So then that would put him up from 69 all the way up to 94. Matt Williams
It's
got
another
another
drive through
penalty.
for Matt Williams.
Yep.
And he still hasn't served his first one, so that's going to be 2 laps where he's going to have to tour the pit lane. That's going to be a big blow. It's going to put him basically back at Boak almost.
It certainly will.
38 seconds back down the road.
And with Jamie Snow and Greg Nangle not here tonight, Ozrob currently occupying the 4th place position, which we know is set to become P3 when Matt Williams peels off, would inherit 16 points, and that would put him onto 74. So that would jump him above Snow and Nangle and into 4th place outright as Matt Williams comes in to serve his penalty. There
Also, all this is all this is academic at the moment because we're still not sure how pit stops are going to play out and the like for the rest of the race.
That's exactly right. Lewis Wedding with a very quick Sector 1 at the moment on track, and let's see if we can pick him up and see what he's up to. He's coming through the 2nd sector now and still on a hot lap by our timing screens. A 55.4 for a second sector. First sector was a 47.0. Cranking up the wick a little bit. Set to be another 2:06 lap if he can hold it together. What is it? It's a 2:06 dead. So that is not only the fastest lap of this race, but it's the fastest lap that's been turned all week long on this circuit. That is a mega lap.
Bloody hell, he's
speechless.
He's doing well. He's doing well from back there.
Have a look at the gap though. It's come down to 54.5 seconds. So he's been chipping away.
Not fast enough.
Not fast enough though. I mean, Will's doing lap times in the high 2-minute 7s. That's where he's at the moment. And his gap to Foley's actually come back slightly. It was close to 5 seconds before. It's now down to 4. And Foley's got another further 4.4 on Ozrob for over for 3rd. And Brendan Ross is still in touch here with Ozrob. In actual fact, he's only a second behind.
Well, at the moment, as Glenn Miles has come into the pits by the looks of it.
That'll be for a penalty to be served, I think.
No, he's actually stopping. So, yeah. We're expecting people to start coming in soon. At the moment, you'd think if Wedding only has to stop one more time, he's got a net 15 seconds in his hands. It looks like there's someone else in the pit lane, I think.
Ozrob. So Ozrob's in. So, and also I think
as is Matt Williams.
Matt Williams is in as well.
Matt Williams might be serving a penalty.
No, it looks like where is he on the track here? He is, yes, serving a drive-through penalty from what I can see.
Matt, he has stopped.
Oh, he's stopping. It said drive-through penalty on the screen. So these two gentlemen obviously stopped together, and they've come in together now. So maybe they're working backwards here. They're working backwards from where they're trying to stop on this race. Well, that actually moves Brendan Ross up to P3, actually moves Boak up to P4. And this field is really strung out now, so it's going to be hard to keep track of who is what and where.
Wedding's now in 5th position.
So that would give him 11 points overall, and it would then move Brendan Ross up to 3rd with him getting 16 points if things were to finish where they are right now.
Everyone stopped on lap 11 last time, and so now it's been a while since they've stopped. Actually, it's been almost 18 laps for most of these guys. Boak, Foley, and Bolger. So Bolger's out of the race, so we don't need to worry about him.
Now, most of these top 4 are showing the little cog and spanner symbol here, suggesting that they might actually be coming in for a stop, and that includes a race leader. So we'll keep an eye on him just to see if he does. Now, he's got the benefit here of coming into the pits nice and early and nice and clean with a clean pit lane, and he is indeed coming in. So 18 laps looks like it is the distance. And Who's that coming in as well? Foley is definitely in as well. So too is Brendan Ross. Phil Boak is down at the bottom end of the circuit, having just exited turn 14. And suspected he probably is going to be in as well. Anybody else looking like an Osrob? Matt Williams have stopped already. Lewis Wedding, we know, definitely does not have to stop. Now, relative to Phil Boak, Wedding is 6.8 seconds behind. So Wedding will definitely take over P4 and likely P3.
Oh, he'll be in P1 fairly easily, I think.
Now, Devonish is the man in the lane.
Boak is in as well.
Lane, and Boak is in now. We're just waiting to see where this puts Lewis Wedding, because he's coming around the final corner now.
Devonish has not moved
yet.
No,
he's not moving yet at all.
There.
So Wedding will inherit this lead. And
not
only that, PBF have to stack again. So Boak having to stack behind Foley, so that did not work out for them. Devonish is now on the move. In actual fact, Foley has gained. Foley's gained on Devonish here, so I'm wondering whether or not there was a bit of damage repair. He's gained quite a lot. That gap was 4 seconds when they came into the pits. And visually you can see now it's substantially less than that. It's probably no more than about 2.5. So they'll now come out onto track. Wedding will trigger the first sector split very shortly.
The gap between Wedding and Devonish is now 15 seconds, so I am very happy with my predictive skills on that one.
I'll get a readout on the screen here as they come down, because Wedding has just gone through the first sector split in a time of 46.8, which is a purple sector for Wedding. Devonish will trigger that second sector split very, very shortly, and it's now 16.4 the gap. Foley 17.8, so that gap is 1.4 seconds between P2 and P3. Now, what lap did Wedding come in on?
Wedding came in on lap 18.
So that says to me, if you're going to get 18 laps on tank of fuel, he would be going all the way to lap 36. Now, I reckon this starts to make sense, Bagsy. If you can get 18 laps on a tank of fuel,
keep in mind that included 4 safety car laps.
And that included 4 safety car laps. We predicted on our screen originally to begin with that we were going to get somewhere around the 54 odd lap mark in terms of lap count for tonight's race. Now, if he comes in on lap 36, assuming that he's getting 18 laps to a tank of fuel, 18 more laps after that from lap 36 brings him up to 54, but not at the pace and the numbers that Wedding is doing right now. He probably needs to squeeze a little bit of fuel in. But if another safety car was to come out, that puts him in the box seat of only having to stop one more time.
Oh yeah, if there's another safety car, he's certainly in the best position.
Yeah, if one more safety comes out, he will be the winner of this race.
It'll be interesting because, as we said, he needed to basically do 2 40-minute stints, and that was with an hour and 15 to go. So at the moment, he needs to do another 13 minutes, essentially. So if he does another 13 minutes on this stint, then he can conceivably do it again, and he'll be in the box seat.
Meanwhile, for second and third, Devonish is starting to drive away from Foley now, having come out of the pits, so that gap has increased out to 1.7 seconds now. He's not making too many inroads onto Wedding at the moment, is Devonish. Well, he took a little bit out that time around, but chopped the gap down to just on 17 seconds. It was up and over just a few moments ago. Foley goes deep, very deep at the chicane there. Manages to gather it up without looping the car. Had he done that, we very well could have ended up with another safety car. Well, strategy's starting to slowly but surely become clearer as to what Lewis Wedding is up to here. And now that Devonish and co probably realise what they've done, they really need a safety car, and probably now, I would imagine. They need to get back on the same sort of strategy that Lewis Wedding's going to be on and make this a straight fight to the finish. That's the only hope. They need a safety car in the next couple of laps. Otherwise, it's almost going to be as good as done.
It will be good as done in their favour though, because Wedding will almost certainly, if he stops anywhere in the near future, will have to stop another time after that and do at least a splash and dash. So really, a safety car will benefit just Lewis Wedding in this scenario.
Devonish is still in the 207s. Wedding in the 207s that time around as well. So the gap actually went the other way. Our last laps were a 207.7 and a 207.9 respectively. So where Devonish gained time in Sector 1, he lost it through Sector 3 predominantly on that time around. Matt Williams pops up with his quickest lap of the race from P6 as well. So a couple of drivers starting to turn their quick laps as night time wears on here. Session start time was set for 7 p.m. so time as it stands now is about 8:15 server time and track time. We've got just over 45 minutes remaining in this 2-hour enduro. Feels like it's a lot longer. A lot of the 90-minute races tend to go rather quickly. And with a lack of action to talk about, I guess we can only speculate as to what might be ahead in the remaining 45 minutes, Bagsy.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking extreme strategy moves from Lewis Wedding. I'm hoping. He's actually put the hammer down a little bit. He's gained a few seconds on... Well, he's not gained, but he's lengthened the gap by a few seconds to Will Devonish. Coming up on Glenn Miles to lap him now too, who, good on Glenn Miles, hasn't got a drive-through penalty in quite a few laps. And is only slightly balking Wedding there. And is he going to get a drive-through just now as I speak?
He got out of the gas. He got out of the gas. That's the smart thing. He got out of the gas when he needed to get out of it because he knew Lewis was there. So there was no point flooring it. Not only to not get the penalty, but also to let Lewis by because otherwise it would have potentially may have also come together. So good driving there. But you're right. The count at the moment stands at 7. For those of you at home playing closest to pin. And Lewis has got 32 laps in the books now. Lap 33 currently being worked upon. And that gap is definitely getting bigger and bigger. It's out to 18.5 seconds now by the timing screens. Foley really not making any impression on Devonish at the moment. That gap between second and third has stayed rather stagnant over the last 2 laps. Oh, Wedding's having an issue. Wedding's had an issue. He's gone straight on at the chicane. He's gone straight on the chicane and down the tunnel. What's happened to Lewis Wedding? That's extremely rare. Did he have a failure? Did he have a brake failure of some nature? Well, we're going to have to take this on the replay. We're going to have to look at this as an onboard, I think. Let's have a listen. I can't tell, Bagsy. I can't tell what happened at all.
He's made the next corner without issue. His gap has dropped by 8 seconds. Boak has got another drive through. And we're going to have to start one for Boak as well here.
I'm not sure how many drive-through penalties he's actually got.
I believe he's up to 3 now.
Oh dear, oh dear. For Lewis Wedding, that could have been nasty. Whatever happened, he managed to... He's only copped a little bit of light damage.
It looked...
He's coming in, and he's coming in, and he's coming in. So I'm wondering whether or not he may have been potentially organising whatever his strategy was going to be. And maybe
that's a good point.
And maybe have missed the braking marker because it either sounded like something was stuck or he hadn't paid attention. Nonetheless, that gap that he'd worked so hard to build after inheriting the lead had pretty much half of it wiped out. Over half of it wiped out, and now hands the race back to Will Devonish. So that'll be an interesting discussion point after this race. Was he playing... The straight is the best part of the circuit to get your strategy and your pit strategy sorted. but he's still got to pay attention to the braking zone.
Before the end of the straight, yeah. Well, that was a 15-lap stint for Wedding there,
Well,
and there is 42 minutes left plus 1 lap.
Well, that's certainly not enough to make it.
He's not going to make it at this point without a safety car.
Well, what that means...
And even then, even with a safety car, he'll still be at the back of the field when they come in, although he won't have to stop for as long when he does come in. So maybe he'll be able to jump people in a safety car pit stop and then just lead from the front to the end. But I think that might be day done for Lewis Wedding as he leaves the pit lane now.
Well, you're right, Magsy. He's going to need to be stationary for a lot less time toward the end of this race. So Devonish and co, we expect, are going to have to... When do they come in? They came in around lap 30. So
lap 29.
29. So end of lap, end of lap 29.
28 for Osrup and Williams.
Yeah, end of lap 29. So they can go to about lap 46, 47, somewhere around that mark, and then they'll be able to fill up and get home from there. Well, I mean, they could stop earlier if they wanted to and run a longer stint to get home, but they can do a short stop around lap 46, 47 and get home comfortably. Wedding will probably have to stop about lap 50 or 49, or about lap 50. And then he's going to have a very short fill, but if it stays the way that it is, then you're right. This race is now swung back to one of these two on screen at the moment in Devonish and Foley, both overdue for a win. Both very, very close together as Devonish was wide off the final corner. Now there's overlap between the two of them. Foley just edges ahead going into the braking zone for one and actually backs out of it because Wedding was there. Devonish was there, left in the space and thought better of it. Well, still 40 minutes to go. And he's just going to tuck under the rear wing here and stay with the Lamborghini. Now goes to the outside. Devonish moves over, leaves him car's width. It's good racing. And I've raced against Will many times in the Porsche Cup when it was running last year.
Ultra defensive there.
But he's ultra defensive in some spots.
It's going to compromise him the whole way up the straight. Foley is almost certainly going to get him here.
And he realises that and he's trying to break that toe. Will's a fair racer. He knows what to do and what's permissible and what he can get away with and what's not what's the right word for it? What is not acceptable?
Just that straight line speed of the Lamborghini though has kept him ahead.
Yeah, got some good pace, that Lamborghini in a straight line. Very difficult to pass.
Also, while this is happening, Brendan Ross is just quietly playing himself back into this. 4 seconds back.
Yeah.
40 minutes to go. Another one for Bogue. He's trying to outdo Miles. That's 4 for Bogue.
All right. We're still keeping tabs here. And it's interesting you mentioned that too, because when we look at Brendan Ross has actually set his personal best first sector that time around compared to the guys ahead here. So Foley was a 48.1, Devonish 47.8, and Brendan Ross 46.7, if you don't mind, through the first sector. Last time around too, Foley was a 206.3 when he actually caught up to Will on the run to turn 1. Will was a 207.5. Brendan Ross was a 207.2. He does. That gives Foley the inside line here and comfortably job done at the final corner.
Well, he didn't get a very good run off the final corner though,
no.
So Devonish.
And they did 209s. They did 209s that time around, these two. So, and Brendan Ross managed to take 0.7 of a second out of him that time around. So 209.4 for Foley, 209.6 for Devonish, 207.2 for Ross. So in actual fact, he took more time out of than what was on offer. So he's very quickly coming back to make this 2-car battle out front a 3-car tango. Now, Will's got had a little bit of a look here, and now Foley has to go and try and break the toe. And it's probably about the time where you need to start playing yourself into contention for where you want to be when your final stops come through. And Will has the inside line here. Who's got the biggest anchor? And it's Devonish that can go deeper on the brakes. And they change places again. And Brendan Ross takes a further 0.2 of a second out of this pair in the first sector alone.
That Lambo just has so much more straight line speed than Foley. As I say, that Foley pulls out to make a move, but well, as soon as Foley pulls out, he stalls. Whereas the Lamborghini just keeps going and going and going, even when it pulls out of that slipstream. And yeah, Ross just getting closer and closer to them. Just on Lewis Wedding, he is now 38 seconds from the lead. So he is actually, despite having that incident, which I'm told from our roving pit lane reporter Rody, was due to looking at something on the HUD and got a bit lost as to where he was on the track, and took some minor damage when he hit that wall. So that was the reason for the stop. So he could have potentially gone longer, but damage necessitated the stop, some minor damage, and yeah, broke at the 100-meter board, not the 150.
Yeah. Brendan Ross takes a further 0.3 of a second out of this pair that time in the second sector. And we'll see what happens when they come to the line this time, what the gap happens to be as they come across the line. He takes a further 0.6 out of it, so he took nearly a full second out of this leading pair in that lap alone. He is coming, and in a big hurry.
It's just it's a long race, and you go through periods of excellence and poor performance. We saw him excellent in the first stint. The second stint after the safety car, just not quite as good, but this current stint, he's absolutely on it.
It certainly is, and his progress is being helped by the fact that Devonish and Foley are basically exchanging positions at a rate of knots, and now Lewis Wedding, quickest lap of the race, into the 2:05.
Basically 2:05.8. That is ridiculous.
How on earth has he managed to do that? Now, another change of position. So Foley got underneath Devonish off the hairpin. Devonish is going to have him back down the inside here. All ran a little bit deep, but they stay side by side. Now the race is starting to come alive. And in actual fact, they gained a 1/10 of a second on Brendan Ross that time around this too. Now,
yeah, I think they lost it all. I think they lost it all through that chicane though, because he's right back to them.
Yep.
I think we'll see
Foley
this
down the
sector is
inside.
going to be a lot.
Very taily. Oh, and a little tap. And Foley's wide. I think that was all fair. And look at this. Brendan Ross is now right with them. This is on for young and old.
There's going to be a large, much faster sector for Brendan Ross than the two in front.
Oh, absolutely. Just having a look, I was just trying to catch Lewis Wedding's best lap. His sector times were absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning before they flashed
Wedding
off the screen.
Is over a second, basically a second and a half faster than the next fastest person, which is Brendan Ross with a 2:07 flat. So that's 1.2 seconds he's got as Foley goes back past Devonish.
Yep, so there was a bit of an issue there because Devonish was a bit wide and just opened the door for Foley. What are the times of these guys doing? 2:10s that time around for that leading pair.
Yeah, Wedding, it was 36 seconds at the start of this lap. Wedding's now 32 seconds behind.
And let's have a look. I'm just waiting for the times to come in. In actual fact, there were track violations for Devonish and Ross that time around as well, by the looks of things. They did not register a third sector, therefore did not register a lap. So they've got to be very careful here. And this is what's worrying me about this battle. A couple of these guys have probably already chalked up a number of track violations. There's down the inside goes Will Devonish, and they run side by side out of the hairpin. And Foley's
there's going to be a very large hole in the air here for Brendan Ross to put his car in. Two cars side by side down the straight.
If you was to go with anybody, I'd be going with Foley, because the aero probably on that car stands a little bit taller and probably benefit the Mercedes a little bit better than the sleek Lamborghini. Although this time they get down the chicane and Devonish runs a bit deeper, but manages to cut it back. But that just gives Foley a bit of an incentive. But he couldn't get the power down in the marbles because he got the wrong side of it. He got very greedy, and then got a little bit tail happy.
Still got a better second phase out than Devonish though.
Yeah, the draft playing a very big part in that too, I think, as well. And Brendan Ross, I think, is just going to have to bide his time here and just wait. And it's the smartest thing that he could probably do, is just wait and let these guys continue to fight out. The one thing that's not in their advantage is that they all pitted on the same lap when they came in under the safety car. So if you assume that they're getting similar burn rates, they could probably all be stopping around the same time as well. Oh, Brendan Ross
Well,
made a bit of a mistake there as well, ran across the curb, and I think he backed out of it just to make sure he didn't get a track violation for that one. But this race for the leading 3 cars has really come alive in this last 10 minutes and setting them up for a very big finish to what is the
well, I'd
second
say
2-hour event of the season.
we're probably still 6 laps away from these guys pitting as well, so there's still a fair bit of racing to be done here before pit stops can potentially have a play as Foley
So
gets
close.
so close to the back of Devonish. There is not enough room to put a bit of rice paper in between those 2 cars there.
Yeah, so close, but yet so far. Lewis Wedding
And Devonish is having to take massive defensive lines as well.
is Lewis Wedding has also curtailed his pace somewhat. He's just dropped back into the lazy mid 206s for the minute, having.
I think that is because he's coming up to the back of Osrob, so he's going to actually have to effect a pass.
Yeah, he certainly is actually. We should probably have a bit of a look and see how that battle is shaping up.
Osrob's actually lost his bonnet somewhere along the way too.
Yeah, so he's probably run into a wall or something, I would imagine, at some point. He wouldn't have run into the back of anybody, but he's carrying a bit of damage there. Matt Williams has moved up into P4 as a result of whatever's happened. Sometimes I think that McLaren's missing a bonnet too, just by the virtue of the fact that it's black, but no, it definitely has got its bonnet. And Lewis was very lucky to get away with what happened down here at the chicane about 15 minutes ago. Ahead of them they can see Matt Williams, he's just gone through the chicane. Wow, Devonish, penalty. Big news. Where did that happen? That, I think, has got to have happened at that chicane at the bottom end of the circuit.
Yep, at the end of the second long straight. I'm just having a look at it now.
Yeah, we're bringing it up on the replay here.
A bit too much.
So Foley went down the inside. Devonish knew he was there, and what happened here? Yeah, he just took too much cope, and there's another penalty for Philip Boak as well, so a little bit too greedy. So big news, and Will's going to serve it straight away. That's probably the smart thing to do.
Smart move.
Got to serve it straight away.
Unfortunate.
So that could take him out of this race. And Foley now has a very hungry Brendan Ross chasing him for what is top step on the podium with 30 minutes to go. Well, let's quickly cycle through the field at 3/4 distance. It's Foley searching for his first win of the GT3 season, pursued by feature race winner at Le Mans, Brendan Ross, looking to make it 2 for 2 for these 2-hour events. Will Devonish has come out P3, having just served his drive-through penalty for a track infringement, so he's going to be ultra careful now. Matt Williams just having a little off-track excursion there at the turn 3-4 complex.
Lewis Wedding has dispatched Osrob at some point.
Yep, he certainly has, and dispatched him quite comfortably. Lewis has got another penalty for Boakes to score another one there. Lewis got a rather large dint in the side door of his car from that damage that he took down at the chicane. Osrob currently occupies P6. Phil Boak will have a penalty to serve, having just locks up here into turn 17. And Glenn Miles still circulating. Only 1 lap down, done remarkably well to stay 1 lap down, and the only retiree. 2 laps down for Glenn Miles, and Steve Bolger the only person to retire from this race, as Glenn Miles, as I just mentioned, is known for having a good run to stay only 2 laps down. Ding ding ding, there's another one, so chalk up another one in the closest to pin stakes. He's now up to 8, and I believe Boak is probably up to 6.
Yep, that's correct. Although Boak put on 3 in the time it took Miles to put on 1. So Miles had quite a good run from between his 7th and 8th one.
Well, Devonish has come out after having served his penalty, comfortably clear of Matt Williams, but still 15 seconds off the back of this pair, who now that Devonish is out of the equation for the moment, what sort of lap times are they turning? So they did 09s last time around. Foley's done an 8 flat this time around. Brendan Ross probably would have done something similar. We wait for the lifetime updates off. Yeah, almost identical.
Less than a 10th between them.
And a 0 with a 208 with an 084 and an 014 with Brendan Ross the quicker. of the pair. And Phil Boak in the pits, and he's out of this race. I think he's probably just. I think you would imagine he's probably just given up here. Bagsy.
Yeah, I think he might have, which is unfortunate, as we've got Ozrob in the pits as well. So Ozrob coming in will be the first person to pit who will be able to go
All the way home
to the end.
Yep, so he's in, and that will be a stop for a scheduled pit stop. So he will be able to go to the flag here.
He's trying to force the hand, I think, of everyone in front of him, so everyone else apart from Glenn Miles, because now, as long as he stays on the lead lap, which I believe he will, because Foley is still coming through the second sector now, and Rob won't have to fill up all the way, so he'll stay on the lead lap. If a full course yellow were to come out,
he's in the box seat,
and the pits close, then he is fueled to the end. Everyone else obviously still has to pit, and he'll go straight to the head of the train, so he'll put himself in a very advantageous position. So we'll see if this sets off a flurry of pit stops or not, because the smart money would be on pitting now to avoid that potential eventuality.
Well, we might send our roving reporter off to the pits to see if he can catch up with what's happened to Phil Boak, but at this point in time, if he's still there, I'll welcome him in for the first time tonight. Benjamin Rhodes, what are you seeing out there today, mate? Nope, looks like he's off.
He's off elsewhere at the moment.
He's off elsewhere at the moment. He was in the channel a few moments ago, but he's obviously disappeared off. Oh, you are here.
Here he is.
Sorry, I was next door and I just missed it. Yeah, I actually was almost going to be driving this race. Unfortunately, my team did a stellar job, but with a couple of firmware updates in the ECU meant that I couldn't jump in. But yeah, I managed to get outside and go back trackside, and just been hanging out with Phil's wedding and just talking to him how disgusting the pace is that he's got at the moment. But yeah, at this point, Lewis is reckoning it's going to be very tight for him to try and get a win at this point. He's going to have to do a couple of sort of... The advantage of pitting where he did for that last that off is that he can basically sort of full fuel the next two runs, and he doesn't have to conserve fuel at all, but he's still going to have issues with pace unless the front guys keep battling. So, and I'll wander off now and try and find Boki and see what happened to him. But I think, yeah, I agree with that. He might have just had enough after getting close to being the top of the pit lane penalty tree.
Well, certainly right. Let's see if you can get some information from him, because it's not something we're used to seeing. He's normally a lot better than that, and maybe just having an off night for a change. He does do Super 2 and some other categories as well, so with a bit of luck, it's just an off night for the 015 PBF Race Engineering car. But in the meantime, the 074 has got a handful on his plate with the 444 Mercedes of Brennan Ross behind him, and these two still yet to stop. Likewise, Will Devonish in P3. He's dropping away from these guys at the moment, even though he served that penalty. He's still losing time slowly but surely as these two pick up their pace.
The other thing is, Glenn Miles, despite getting all his penalties, he's going to pass Boak soon.
Yeah, he will.
And that's going to be a 7th place, which is going to be, you know, he just, that's the thing, Glenn Miles, he'll just, even if he has issues and he's going last, he finishes basically almost every single race, and he just keeps getting points for that, which is really good.
And Glenn Miles has 28 points to his name at the moment. Oh, Matt Williams with another drive-through penalty. But
I believe that was for the second last corner.
Yeah. So if Glenn Miles moves up to P7, P7's going to net him a further 9 points. So that will go with his 28 points, put him on to 37. That will actually jump him up into 7th place overall on the standings, and it'll surpass Steve Bolger. So that will be a good result for him. He'll still be a considerable amount of margin behind Ozrob, who's got 58 as it stands right now, before you factor in any further points for him. He's currently P6. He'll get 10 points and go up to 68, which will jump him past Nangle and Jamie Snow. So there's still a little bit of thing to play out here, but you're right, Glenn Miles is certainly just picking up some points just by virtue of finishing at the moment. And with those that are not here tonight, or those that have already out of this race, as he actually just passed Phil Boak now, so he technically is now in officially P7 as long as he finishes the race. He's just picking up the points and getting himself into a nice finish here for the season with 3 races to go, plus the balance of this one.
Speaking of picking up points, that drive-through for Matt Williams that he just earned on the second last corner of the previous lap is news to the ears of Lewis Wedding, because he no longer has to make a pass on Matt Williams. Matt Williams will probably come into the pits this lap, and that means Wedding will be able to not have to worry about getting past. He can just continue putting in his hot laps and try and make some more inroads into the lead, which is now only 22 seconds ahead, and he'll probably be taking less fuel than the others who are going to be coming in soon as well, we assume, because we're almost certain everyone else needs to stop once, apart from Ozrob.
That's right. So Ozrob, the
and
only
Glenn,
man...
and Glenn Miles as well, who's also
yeah.
hit on lap 40 for him.
Yeah,
Lap
so
43 for the leaders.
So those two are the only ones that can get home from where they stand at the moment. Glenn Miles having the being down by 3 laps means he has to do 3 laps less than the leaders. And Matt Williams is in to serve his penalty, so you called it, Bagsy. That gives Lewis Wedding free run down the main straight, and he can set his sights on the back of Will Devonish, having just done a lazy 205.8.
Actually, Matt Williams hasn't served the drive-through, he has stopped.
Okay, so
for his pit stop.
Corrected there. So Wedding still to stop again. Devonish still to stop again. The leading pair still yet to stop again. Question is when? We're starting to get into this window now where they probably should be stopping fairly soon. I think if I was Brendan Ross, I'd be stopping this lap and trying to affect the undercut with some fresh tyres. But that being said, there's only 20 minutes to go. Foley may very well elect to come in and do fuel only, depending how far they can go and how good a condition his tyres are in. There's not a terrible amount of high-speed corners here, so there's only the first sector with turns 2, 3, and 4. But apart from that, it's all chicanes, hard stops, 90-degree corners where there's not a hell of a lot of lateral load. And then the only other high-speed section is really the left-handers, so the right-handers through turns 15 and 16 before you brake for 17, which is where they're coming through now. So there's a bit more of mechanical grip, but you're not asking a terrible amount of the tyres. You're not exerting a lot of speed through here, so they might be in a reasonable shape. Actually, Brendan Ross is probably going to be in a reasonable shape as well. Maybe he could affect coming in for a fuel-only stop.
There's lots of different ways you can go about it at this point, and only 20 minutes plus 1 lap left. Matt Williams, because he just came to the pits, he is 18 seconds ahead of Ozrob, but still has a drive-through penalty to serve, so that could be a bit close there, although it's only 10 to 12 for a drive-through in terms of time lost, but that could be close for 5th at the end.
Yeah, it could be very close at the moment. I think you're right, he's still got that over his head. Yes, he does. So he's coming through the chicane. I just left a chicane at the moment. Glenn Miles in the background, getting a little bit crossed up, I believe. And where's Ozrob? Yeah, Ozrob on track is coming down to the same chicane now. So there's a length of a straightaway between them at the moment. There's Ozrob at the end of the chicane, and there's Matt Williams down at the bottom of the circuit. So just a little bit more than the second straightaway separates these two. As we start to calculate some numbers for the leaders as to how far they can actually go. So they're currently working lap 45 with 18 minutes remaining. So we assume they'll get
basically
around
any
about
lap
7.
now.
Yeah, basically any lap we expect them to be in.
Probably this lap.
Well, we reckon we can get probably at least another 8 or 9 laps from here at this rate. So it'll get us up to about lap 53, 54 for the end of the race. Well, Foley could be planning a stop here. There's a little cog there, and there isn't one for Brendan Ross, so maybe Foley's going to pull this trigger first. Now, there's 2 ways that this can work. Either Foley decides he wants to do fuel only and maintain track position, or he goes for the tyres as well. But depending on what the strategy call is, Brendan Ross could take the inverse reaction as he makes a mistake. And he's got a drive-through penalty. No, heartbreak, Brendan Ross. What did he do there? That is just absolutely handed this on a silver platter to Foley. Foley surely be in this lap. Let's see if we can pick this up on a replay, because that was a little bit bizarre. That's not a section of track where I expected to see a corner cut made. Did he go wide?
Yeah,
he did. Too wide and too much speed. And another penalty for Glenn Miles as well. That moves him up to 9. Brendan Ross
Foley's in.
And Ross is serving his drive-through penalty right now. So Foley's in
He
for a stop.
He might be pitting still. He's just done the drive-through.
He's gone well past his pit bay. So that
Devonish is in as well.
He certainly is. And so too is Lewis Wedding. Right, so Wedding was catching up to Devonish, splash and dash. So this is going to be a real pit stop race here. Matt Williams has served his penalty. Now, Wedding has gone past the pit bay where Foley normally is. Now, Wedding's taking tyres as well. And we're just keeping an eye on Devonish here, because there's Foley. He's on the move now. Now, where does Devonish come out in this relative to Wedding? Because that's the next part of this equation. Devonish is out now. Jesus, so that's really quick. I don't think Devonish took tyres. Surely he didn't take tyres there, because that is a fuel-only stop. Where's Wedding? Wedding on the move.
He's leaving now.
Wedding did take tyres. Devonish didn't. I don't know. I couldn't see Foley, but I think Foley probably did. But so Devonish has played himself back in here, I feel, just by taking fuel only, and has just brought that deficit right down. But
yeah, but is he going to be able to push enough?
Is he going to be able to push enough? That's the thing. Or is he there to maintain second place? I think he's probably played that as a strategy call to try and maintain second place over Lewis Wedding, because once Brendan Ross stops, where he feeds out is critical.
Well, Wedding is 15 seconds off the person who is set to be leader in Foley.
Yeah.
Well, that being said, there is, between Foley and Ross is 40 seconds. Sorry, let me correct that. Between Foley and Ross is 36 seconds. So Brendan Ross has already served that drive-through.
He has.
If he doesn't take tyres, and he might be able to put enough fuel in to actually come out in the lead still.
He's going to have to calculate this precisely. We've seen people have a tendency to overfuel their cars.
Or underfuel.
Or underfuel their cars in the case of Heath Dixon. And in he comes. The 444 is in. Right.
Well, we know it's 12 seconds to transit the pit lane, so really at most he'll be 20 second station.
Helmet cam. 80 k's in the pit lane. Let's see what happens. Tyres going on, the car's going up. All right, so that answers that question. So Foley will come through and inherit the lead of this race. Will Devonish will inherit second place. Wedding will inherit third. Where will Ross feed out? Will he feed out in between Wedding and Matt Williams? And there you can see there the 444 still in the lane. In actual fact, it's on the move, I think. No,
He's just gone now.
Just going now. So he actually is going to feed in. Oh, this is going to be mighty close with Lewis Wedding, actually.
Keep in mind, he does get to cut the first corner.
He does.
And Wedding's only just come across the line now, so I think he'll be fairly safely in third. But Wedding has a lot of pace at the moment.
He does, and his tyres are up to temperature as well. This is going to be really, really tight. No, actually, in fact, turned to be okay, but Wedding will have the pace advantage here, and this fight for third is now on. So that's actually probably good news for Foley, and probably for Devonish as well, because it means that Brendan Ross is effectively a roadblock for Lewis Wedding. I mean, Brendan Ross is no slouch. He's definitely going to give Lewis Wedding a fair fight.
Ross is going to be careful as well, though, because he knows that any track cuts are going to cost him 10 seconds at least, and will start putting him back towards Matt Williams. So he's going to have to be quite careful there. But it's going to be interesting to see if Wedding can catch up to Foley, because there are 13 seconds between Wedding and leader in Foley, and there is just under 13 minutes left. So he has to essentially gain 2 seconds a lap to make it. Well, just under that because we've got 12 minutes 20 plus 1 lap.
And on top of that, I've got a funny feeling that Devonish is going to be reliant on a mistake from Foley as well. Wedding gets very close to the back of bumper of this Mercedes at the moment as well, trying to put those warm tyres to use.
He's bought him at the wrong time though.
Yeah, he
because
has.
He's going through this whole slow section where it's pretty much line astern bar a mistake.
I think he's going to try and set him up maybe for the hairpin. Goes through here. Oh no, he's having a dive down here at turn 17. That's a bold move.
What a pass.
What a pass, but he did take a lot of curb there. I'm wondering if that's awarded him a curb strike or not. But that was a very, very late pass and a very, very good pass from Lewis Wedding.
Heads up by Brendan Ross. That needed a willing participant, and he knew that there was nothing to be gained by letting them crash together at this late stage in the race.
It certainly did, and just that high shot there and the side shot there, you can see the damage that Wedding is still carrying from that incident with the barrier at turn 8 where he ran off down the escape road. In actual fact, Wedding set a 2-minute 5.987 that time around as well, so still able to punch out lap times in the 2-minute 5s. Now Ross has just got to, Wedding a little bit out of shape there, Ross has just got to try and go with Wedding here and use that draft to try and get Wedding to drag him up to the back of Devonish if possible.
Devonish is only 7 seconds ahead now, so I think he made a mistake. He's fallen a bit off the back of Foley. It's now 5-second gap out the front there.
Yeah, you're watching the timing there as Glenn Miles gets another penalty, and that gives him the 10.
It's round 10.
It's a round 10. So I don't know if anyone in the live chat still, I haven't seen it, but if anyone's playing closest to pin, that is where the current state is at. Yeah, you're watching the live bags. You're watching the timing, I guess, in real time as it is sector, microsector by microsector, whereas I'm looking at it as a sector split. Hence why you say it's a little bit smaller than it actually is from time to time. But in actual fact, Foley is just walking away from Devonish at the moment at a very reasonable pace. In actual fact, he took tyres. He's doing lap times in the low 207s. Devonish is in the low 209s at the moment. So I think Devonish is very much playing a game at the moment of just trying to hang on to second place with just under 10 minutes remaining. But he's only got about 7 seconds to play with here.
Well, it would have been an extra 10 seconds if he'd taken tyres, and he would have definitely been behind Wedding, and he knows he probably doesn't have the pace. So, in the end, he's decided to go for the second place and podium over the potential win. So he's taking a risk. We'll see if it pays off.
Well, he's taking a risk. I've got a funny feeling it may not pay off because the amount of time Lewis continues to take out of that Lamborghini driver is mega. And look at this, a 204.9.
That is disgusting.
Shut the front gate.
I'd just like to say Brendan Ross did 205.3, so he's closed the gap in a sense, in that was pretty much as fast as anyone else had gotten.
Have a look
beforehand.
at these.
So
have
Ross
a look at
is
these sector
the clear
times.
second faster.
Have a look at these sector times. First sector 46.595, which is not purple sector, by the way. It's not the quicker sector. Second sector purple 55.037, and the final sector 23.3, which was purple as well. Two purple sectors in that.
He was a second faster in the second and third sector, but he was at parity with Foley in the first sector. So that's actually what he needs to do, 2 seconds a lap. So if he can keep it up, he's going to have a chance at Foley at the end. He's almost certainly going to get past Devonish. That gap has been just rolling away. 5 seconds or 4 seconds, 0.3 that last lap, Devonish was caught.
That's it. Well, here we go. That gap is just continuing to being mauled by Lewis Wedding at the moment between himself and Will Devonish. He
Ross
always puts on a
set
show.
Ross just set a purple first second.
Yeah, 46.306. So he's just following Lewis Wedding at the moment. Wedding did a 46.6 for that sector. But this is precisely what I just said a few moments ago that Brendan Ross needs to do. Wedding's got the pace. Brendan Ross just needs to stay with Lewis Wedding. Take the same lines that he does. Let Wedding be the draft and just let him drag up to the back of him.
they're almost at Devonish already. That's happened so quickly.
Yeah, I think Will's gonna not only lose second place, he's gonna lose third as well to Brendan Ross at this rate. Let's have a look. Ross is very light off the last corner. What sort of sector times are these guys doing? A 2:09 for Devonish, 2:05 for Wedding, and a 2:05 for Brendan Ross. So now the challenge becomes a little bit more difficult. Now they're right with the Lamborghini, and the first opportunity they're probably going to have to pass, it's down at the hairpin. I think Wedding probably is a little bit too far back to have a go here into the chicane, and it's a bit tight.
Oh, he's going to be out drag him down the straight,
Yeah,
though,
fresh
because
tyres.
Devonish has no traction.
And not only that, Devonish going defensive, Wedding's going deep, looking to try and get the pace.
That wasn't the best move.
But that wasn't the best
Wedding
move.
there.
No, he had the marbles.
He actually left himself. He's very vulnerable to Ross now.
He is, and not only that, he was trying to slingshot. I could see what he was doing because the defensive line was being taken there. Wedding won't appreciate this. And Mercedes run under his rear bumper. He tried to go to the outside, did Brendan Ross, but didn't quite get close enough alongside to make it move as Glenn Miles racks up penalty number 12.
You see how much they closed under braking there? That was absolutely ridiculous.
That's just tyre performance, I think. Devonish is on tyres that are absolutely screaming right now.
I think that from Wedding there has probably cost him his last chance at the race win.
Oh, there's Brendan Ross has had a little moment there, but he's managed to gather it up, but he's lost all that gap just because Wedding had to check up because Devonish was braking in the braking zone, and now here's the move. Down the inside goes Lewis Wedding. P2 is about to exchange hands, and it does comfortably.
But yeah, I think he's cost himself a chance at the win there by not getting that pass done down the first of the back straights, because he could have gained a lot of time through this middle sector and final sector, which he just isn't going to do now because he spent all that time, or he wasted the time way out in the marbles and then having to follow Devonish. So yeah, this is going to be probably a poor lap from Wedding. Foley did a 206.9 and Lewis Wedding also did a 206.9. So the poor lap for Wedding has equalled.
And now down the inside goes Brendan Ross, and then get very deep. But that'll give Will Devonish back the third place just for a brief moment. So can Will hang on here for the remaining 5 minutes and change to be able to get this done?
Up as well.
And they've got Glenn Miles coming up as well. So that one lap that Will Devonish was able to hold off Lewis Wedding for the majority of, as probably music to Foley's ears. Now, Glenn Miles has come back onto the track at probably the wrong opportunity here, but he just drives a bit quicker to get off the racing line. But that's actually compromised Will Devonish here, because now it puts Brendan Ross on the inside for this chicane, which is the preferred spot to be. Although he's not getting the benefit of the draft here, but braking performance and tyre performance will suggest that Brendan Ross should have the advantage here down at the chicane. But he's going to try and stay with him here, Will. Round the outside, and they give each other a bit of room. But
you see how little traction he has
there.
Yeah,
he had zero traction. Absolutely none whatsoever.
Even though Ross had the back kick out and Devonish didn't, he just did not have any ability to put the power down. And now I think he might be able to make a Banzai move here, but he's not going to hold it.
He's going to have a little look, and he has a look, another look, and a little touch, and that's a little bit too much. But then he decides, nope, I unfairly bumped you, and I'm going to let you have that back, and that's the right thing to do. But Matt Williams with another penalty. Geez, a string of drive-through penalties tonight. This is not the usual
this is
penalty that we're having.
Matt Williams, that drive-through there, that's going to put him right with Ozrob, because there's currently a 14-second gap between them. So Ozrob could still be on for another position.
Where is Matt Williams in all this as well? Actually, he's down at the bottom end of the circuit at the moment, and Ozrob is about halfway down the back straight. Let's go and see him pick up this battle again. So yeah, Brendan Ross is now kicked away from Will Devonish. So I think a maiden podium here in GT3 for Will Devonish is unfortunately going to go begging, barring a mistake from Brendan Ross.
Foley did a 207 flat, Wedding did a 205.8. So
yeah, I think
that is 1.2 seconds, and there are 3 minutes left. So we'll have 3 more laps, I believe.
Yep.
And I do not think Wedding is going to gain 3 seconds a lap.
No, definitely not.
Unless Foley has some sort of issue or gets a drive-through, in which case Wedding will certainly win the race, but I think Foley knows he just has to keep it between the lines and he'll be okay.
So we're going to get to lap 55 will be the final lap based on the numbers we're seeing, with 2 minutes and 15 seconds remaining. And there's about another minute and a half left of this lap. And then the clock will go zeros during lap... actually, hang on a second. The clock, lap 54 we'll get to. Because the clock will go zeros during lap 53, and then it'll be lap 54. So apologies. We will get across the line and be on lap 54 to finish this race. Been a long day. Mental maths is usually my strong suit, but unfortunately just one digit too many. Wedding currently a very, very quick through Sector 1 as well, looking like he's on track for another PB. He's still trying to hunt Foley down, but he's unfortunately going to run out of time and laps to be able to do this.
Yeah, he's run a good race, but just a strategy error, really, by not coming in under that safety car. If he'd come in under that safety car, while he might have been in a bit of traffic, he clearly had the pace. I mean, we heard from Benjamin Rhodes that Wedding did that so he could run in clear air, but it's not worked. He's running clear air and he's run fast, but at the end of the day, it's not worked out for him because he essentially cost himself a minute and 10 seconds by not pitting under the safety car with everyone else. If he'd done that, I think Wedding would have been the clear runaway victor today.
Absolutely right. Well, speaking of Benjamin Rhodes, if he's about, have you managed to track down Phil Boak?
I think he's over in. I think he's over in the other chat with Wedding.
He's over trying to see if he can get some more information about what's going on. So,
Wedding will be quite annoyed because he can see Boak, but he's not going to get there.
No, certainly not.
Here's Ben.
So, Mr. Rhodes, have you actually managed to catch up with Phil Boak?
I haven't, no. Unfortunately, I think he went straight back to the transporter after that. I think it, from the other drivers I have talked to, I think it is just a case of just maybe a bit of frustration with where the race has gone for him. I don't think he wanted to be accruing that many off-track excursions. On the other hand, though, on topic of off-track excursions, Glenn Miles now sitting at 12. He's pretty happy to be winning the race for that. I think the average is six an hour, and that makes one every 10 minutes for him on average. So he's winning at something at least. But Glenn's having some fun there at the back.
Well, when you count something that you're not supposed to have, I don't think that's winning. I think that's still losing any way you look at it. But I love his enthusiasm. Just because something is more does not mean that it's actually that you are the winner. As we'll just wait up for 2 seconds here.
Time
has
expired, so Foley's about to start the final lap, and he has a quite comfortable 6.5 second buffer.
He is. White flag is in the air. 1 lap to go. And Foley with a comfortable 7-second margin.
Wedding makes his way across the line. Brendan Ross is, barring any incident for him, is going to end up third, and Devonish, unfortunately,
end up fourth.
Not quite able to hold all together.
Now, Matt Williams has actually managed to come out back ahead of Ozrob and hang on to that for fifth. And he's gained time.
It was about 3 seconds when he came out of the pits, and he's gained 3, so he's in quite a good spot there. He should be fine. So we don't expect any more changes to positions.
Nope. So we're not expecting it, but we hope there's not one final twist in the equation here. Well, we're about to get a 5th winner if everything stays the way that you can see the gap. There it is to Lewis Wedding. If everything stays the way that it is, we're about to get a 5th winner in 6 races this season, which is an incredible feat for GT3 and an incredible testament to how even this competition is. We've seen wins for McLaren, we've seen wins for Mercedes, and we're hopefully about to see the first win of the season for a Bentley.
It's been excellently driven by Foley. He's kept his nose clean.
And no
He's
damage on that
played
car
his
either.
pit stop. Yeah, he's played his pit stop strategy to perfection, and he's driven essentially flawlessly, apart from a couple of issues at the middle chicane between the straights. But bar that, it's been essentially perfect. He's done a really good job, and a well-deserved win.
And he's staying well away from the curbs at the moment as well. He knows he's got time in hand. So he just needs to navigate 2 more corners. And he will greet the checkered flag for the first time in GT3 World Challenge competition in 2019. Around the final corner, Brenton Foley for PBF Race Engineering, Bentley, and Apex Rear Wing. Flashing the lights. Well done. Great job. Lewis Wedding, P2, so close, but yet so far. He really tried to hunt down Foley in that final stint. 3rd place goes to Brennan Ross, so he will maintain his stand at the top of the point standings. Heartbreak for Will Devonish, he drove quite well as well, but he picks up a nice haul of points as well after all of that. Matt Williams will come home to score his first points of the season, hard to believe. In all the previous 5 races, he has not finished, but this race he was tempted not to run, but he's going to come home in 5th, and at least he's finished the race, and that's something to smile about for a change for Mr. Williams, and he will be very, very happy to greet that checkered flag. 6th place for Ozrob, for D's Nuts Racing, for the 555 BMW. Bonnet missing and all.
And everyone finishing, apart from Glenn Miles, finishing on the lead lap.
Yeah, correct. So Glenn Miles he's completed 49 laps. He'll complete 50 of the leaders' 54, but the most important thing is that he will finish this race and pick up some more points. And I sort of liken him to James May a little bit when he talks about things such as his terrible apexes and things like that, because you can see that's on display here. But nonetheless, he will pick up some points, and it will move him ahead of Steve Bolger in the standings, most importantly. And that is the GT3 World Challenge race from Abu Dhabi done.
Yeah, it was a pretty good race, and there was a fair bit of action throughout, to be honest, that we weren't exactly expecting in such a small field, but considering the size of the field, there was always a chance throughout the race for anyone, really, so it was a good race.
It certainly did. Well, that sort of really came alive toward the end there. Those last sort of 35 minutes is where it started. About 35, 40 minutes to go is where it started to play out, where we started to see the convergence of strategies with Foley and Devonish and Brennan Ross all coming together, and then the strategy playing out. And then, unfortunately, that drive-through penalty for Will really ruined his opportunity at having a shot at the podium there. So he had to do something different to try and hold out for a podium finish, but alas, it wasn't to be. Well, the top 3 are joining us at the moment, and Bagsy's with our race winner.
Yeah, Brenton, it was a pretty good race from you, but fairly uneventful apart from a couple of stages where you were in the pack. But towards the end there, you sort of led it with fair ease, to be honest. How'd you feel in the car?
I was pretty nervous in the last few laps. I was on the limit of my track cuts as well, but I didn't want to back off at all, because as soon as I back off, I tend to make more mistakes. So yeah, tried to just avoid looking at the timer and the standings. I knew Lewis would be catching, so I pretty much just only glanced at it every 3 laps or so. I really just tried to avoid it and just kind of focused on my own race, and yeah, it worked this time.
Where were you? Because we saw a lot of people having issues with track cuts, and I think all bar 2 or 3 people got drive-through penalties. I think it may have just been you and Lewis Wedding who didn't get drive-through penalties. Where were you noticing the most issues with the track cuts?
Oh, they were everywhere. Yeah, there was no one spot really. Mine were all scattered. I got one going wide at the second last corner. I got one very early on in like the first or second lap at the first chicane, and then I got one with my battle with Will, kind of at the back chicane. I don't know, the after the second back straight, I got one there. I found that it was easy to cut because you can get a bit sideways there. But yeah, I had 4 out of 5. If I had one more, I was going to get a penalty as well.
There you go. So right on the edge for Brenton Foley, and a good win nonetheless. Second place, Lewis Wedding, had a fairly eventful race, was leading for a fair part at one point. We saw at the end of the first back straight, you had a bit of an issue. What was happening there?
Well, I was looking quite hard and just to go over some things, and because I feel the brake boards at the that chicane there have been taken, I sort of lost where I was for a second and sort of went past the 150 board where I brake and ended up braking it at the 100 board. So that threw a spanner in the works, and it's a bit unfortunate. I think without that, it would have made probably the end a lot more interesting. But aside from that, just just drove my nuts off and tried to recover.
So were you planning on going much further instead of pitting immediately after that incident, or were you pretty close to pitting anyway?
I would have pitted probably not on the lap that I had that incident. Where I had, I think, fuel for another lap after that, and I would have gone an extra lap. So there's obviously, so it didn't affect the strategy really all that too much. But I think the big thing, even beside that mistake, I think there was at the last stop I put probably a lap or two extra fuel in again, which probably doesn't sound like too much, but it probably would have cost me, I think, second or two. And then at the first pit stop again, my pit crew, after selecting to pit after across the start-finish line this time, they decided once again when I entered the pit lane that they'd go back into the pits, and that cost me another 5 seconds in the pit. So it would have made it interesting, but I tried to make the most of it, but it wasn't to be.
Fair enough. Speaking of the strategy, you were the only person who didn't pit under the first safety car. Do you think that the time lost there cost you the race win there as well?
No, I don't think so. I think it was just going off with the chicane and then just adding that little bit of extra fuel at that last stop. It was probably the big thing. I could have pitted, obviously, like everyone else. I knew everyone else was going to pit anyway, but when I was racing with everybody, because of McLaren's just terrible acceleration, I was just getting stuck behind people that, through the middle sector and the final sector, I was significantly faster than everybody else, but you can't really pass into there. There's not really too many opportunities, and I didn't want to get caught up battling people because I still would have ended up a few cars down. I still would have been in the mid pack there, so I wanted to avoid that, go a few laps longer, have track position, and then hopefully get it back towards the end. Which I think if I hadn't have made that mistake, it probably would have just worked out. But yeah, I think the strategy call was the right one in the end, I think.
Fair enough. And our final podium place getter, Rossi, how'd you feel that race went for you? You had a fair few battles most of the race, really. How was it, especially towards the end, following Wedding?
Yeah, pretty encouraging to sort of follow Lewis and sort of pretty much match his pace, because before then I was only probably sitting in the high 2-minute 5s, and I managed to get to the low 2-minute 5s there. But sort of just an up and down race for me. Really sort of stuffed up a lap early in the stint in the first half of the race, and really just set the race from there. I sort of fell back behind Devonish, had an incident with him, and just had another spin off where one of the brake markers were, and it sort of set me back heaps, and then sort of had to recover from there.
Yeah, we saw especially the first stint and the last stint you were going quite well, and that middle stint did seem to be the biggest issue. Was that just because of those couple of incidents, or was there sort of something you just weren't happy with the car after the first stop?
Probably just the car wasn't so much in the window where I really wanted it, where the first 5, 6, 7 laps it was really good, but then the last third of the race was really pretty much in the window for me, so yeah, it just wasn't there.
Still good podium position and a good race. And throw it back to Nether.
Thank you, Bagsy. The provisional points situation after 6 rounds. Our first 2 legs are done. So we've been through Europe, we've been through the Asia Pacific region, and now we've got 3 races coming up in the Americas. But the point standings, and this is where it gets really interesting. We now have a tie at the top of the standings with Lewis Wedding and Brennan Ross both on 104 points. Lewis Wedding on top by virtue of 2 wins to 1. Brenton Foley has closed right in on this battle too. He's 5 points adrift of the top 2. He's on 99 points with the 30 points that were awarded for the win today. Ozrob actually is one of the big movers. He jumps from 6th to 4th with his finish of 6th place tonight. He actually jumps ahead of Jamie Snow and Greg Nangle. So that battle is now Ozrob 68, Jamie Snow 67, and Greg Nangle on 59. So you'd think that those 3 gentlemen there, Ozrob, Snow and Nangle, they're still within earshot, but they need a lot to go their way in order for any of these standings to be upset. Miles, Bolger, Harvey and Tara all a little bit too far back to challenge for any of the top 3 places in the championship, but not too late for them to get a win under their belt or get a good result under their belt. But you say Bagsy, probably the winner of this GT3 World Challenge is more than likely going to come from the top 5. Maybe Nangle's an outsider, top 6 should any of the top 5 trip over themselves in a big way.
Yeah, that's the main thing. And we saw Nangle wasn't here tonight. You'd imagine he'd be in a much better position if he'd managed to get in and get some points. And we said at the top of the broadcast, it's always about scoring those points. One of the biggest reasons that Ross is still in the lead is because he's scoring those points week in, week out for this series. So you've got to be in it to win it, and you've got to score points and finish to win it.
Absolutely. So with that being said, that means until next time, we've got a 2-week wait where we encounter the Circuit of the Americas. But for now, this has been the 2 Hours of Abu Dhabi. I've been Nether. I've been accompanied by Bagsy. As always, please drive safely. And until next time, it's bye for now.